Oh. That's starting.
Can you turn that owl away from me? It's kind of creepy. The eyes. You ever see this? Yeah, it's called an owl. Turn it.
Well, every time somebody talks, it's gonna find it spin around. It detects noise.
The eyes do?
Yeah,
They're looking over this way too.
yeah, they're all around.
You can't escape them.
These are the camera.
That's creepy. It's like.
Yeah.
All right, good evening, ladies and gentlemen. This is the regularly scheduled meeting of the Environmental Commission of Fairhaven. I am Brian Rice, the vice chair. I'm sitting in for our chair who is home on Zoom.
Yeah.
And Ralph, I hope you're feeling better, sir.
Well,
So that I'll read, I don't have, yeah, that, can you? Or whatever, does somebody have it printed, the agenda? Yeah, I have the sunshine. So this is the regular meeting of the Environmental Commission of the Borough of Fairhaven. In accordance with the provisions of the Open Public, thank you, Meetings Act. Public meetings may be held in person or by means of communication equipment to include streaming services and other online meeting platforms. This meeting is being held in person and through the Zoom meeting platform using an owl, which is creepy, being broadcast from Borough Hall, 748 River Road, Fairhaven, New Jersey. Public participation for this regular meeting on September 14th, 2022 is available by call-in, phone number, or through Zoom. Members of the public will be on mute until it is time for questions, comments, which will be announced. At that time, the public has the opportunity to question, comment, or through Zoom or in person, obviously, and will be called on at the appropriate time. Notice of this meeting was sent to the Asbury Park Press, Two River Times, and the Star Ledger on January 28, 2022. Posted on the Borough website, the bulletin board in the municipal building, and has remained continuously posted as required under the state statute. With adequate notice having been given, the Environmental Commission Secretary is to include this statement in the minutes of this meeting. Pledge of allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America, for which it stands, one nation, under liberty and justice for all. Thank you. Roll call. You want to do roll call or I do roll call?
Sure.
Oh, great. Thank you.
Michael DiMichelli.
She's coming, she'll be a few minutes.
Okay. Kelly Flanagan.
Here.
Jesse Murray.
Here.
Brian Olson. Gary Patterson.
Here.
Jonathan Peters.
Here.
Brian Rice.
Here.
Ralph Windrum.
here,
You have a quorum.
Has everybody read the July meeting minutes? Of course, we didn't have an August meeting, so are there any additions or corrections to the minutes for July? Additions, anything? Okay, so we'll get down to our guest speaker tonight, who I've known for a while, but never officially met face to face. That is Zach Royal. He's with the American Littoral Society. We've been working with them for a while now. So I'm very, very happy to see you come, and thank you, Tracy, for organizing this. So basically, Zach is going to discuss the living shorelines, which I might add that even though we're talking about a specific area with the park at Normandy, this can be done anywhere. Most of our waterfront properties do have bulkheads, but I think, and Zach, you'll get into it a little bit further, that even though there may be a bulkhead in front of a property, we can do sometimes, there is sometimes a way to do and apply living shorelines in front of bulkheads. And I know this because of my other businesses. So, and working with you in the past.
Yeah.
So, I guess you'll talk about the benefits of why that would be, right? Somebody say, well, I have a bulkhead, so I'm not worried about my property eroding, but there's other advantages to take place of the big disadvantages of having an actual bulkhead.
Yeah, exactly. So just to speak on that real quick, we have another project that we're trying to pursue down near Tuckerton area, where it's a similar situation to that. The property has a bulkhead, but then they have marsh in front of that bulkhead, and they have some other degraded stuff in front of that. But they are looking to do a type of living shoreline project there, where you're getting the increased resiliency by having that initial marsh in front of that bulkhead, right? So your bulkheads don't last forever. Any sort of extra resiliency that you can have is ultimately got to improve that area, how long lasting things work and how stable your shoreline is for as long as possible. And then the added benefit of living shoreline projects or using nature-based solutions is the ecosystem benefits that they provide as well. So if you're concerned with cleaner water or a more healthier ecosystem or fish in the streams and rivers, more plants and animals, that's something that you want to try and pursue with that stuff. And I can talk more about living shorelines in general. I don't have like a formal presentation on this project with the Normandy Ave. So I'm free to go into some of the history of how we started working with it, a little overview of everything.
Yeah,
That would be helpful.
An overview of where the town and we started.
Yeah, and
communicating
kind of where we're
with
at
you
right
guys.
now. Yeah. So this was, this came to our attention a couple years ago. It was actually our assistant director at the time, Ken Van Hemmen. I think he lives on Denormity. He still lives there. I don't know if he moved.
No, he moved up to Maine, but he's the one
Did he
who talked to me about it, yeah.
Yeah, so he had come to us, and he talked about the property. And we went out to visit it. We did a site visit. And at the time, we were also as part of this collaborative that was being done in New Jersey with different nonprofits and some other regulatory agencies as well. That was focused on living shorelines, doing both outreach to different communities, and we were developing this online tool as well. So it kind of fit with what we were doing as part of that collaborative, and then seeing this site, and it all kind of worked together. An initial aspect of that was that we had Stevens Institute, who were part of this collaborative. They were tasked with coming up with some different designs at a couple different sites. So they picked Normandy as one of the spots where they did some work. They came up with some rough conceptual designs, like 3 different options that the town or people could consider. We kind of further refined that and kind of selecting based on one of the general designs that they came up. We kind of selected that, refined it a little bit further. We had some additional people come out. We worked with Monmouth. They came out and did some bathymetry surveying for us to get all the stuff that you need to start putting together a design and a project going forward. The actual design and the project itself. So if you guys, I think you're probably all familiar with the site. If you're not, it's that small little kind of pocket beach, and there's a little, essentially like a very small coastal bluff, and then like your kind of uplands now. So the main issue there is your shoreline is actually fairly stable, like the edge of your beach and where that is. That lasts pretty well, at least looking through like historical aerial imagery and all that stuff. But it's that bluff that is gradually kind of getting eaten away.
Degrading.
Yeah, so that is the main kind of concern in terms of like resiliency of that site. Is that bluff is slowly, and it's going to slowly eat away going further back. So the ultimately the design that we thought would be best for that site was to address that bluff, right? That's kind of the main thing that needs to be focused on. So right now it's fairly steep. It's about like 1-to-1, so like maybe like a 45-degree angle. So the less steep you can make that, obviously the better, right? It's gonna, instead of having like the full energy during storms impact that bluff, if you can slope it down to a lower grade, instead of those waves or things impacting it, hitting it directly, it's gonna run up it a little easier and dissipate that energy. So we wanted to regrade that bluff. The issue is the less steep you make it, the more shallow, I guess, whatever the term you would say for it, the more it's going to cut in, or the more it's going to move further back into your upwards, right? So right now we'll say it's like a 1-to-1 slope. So thinking back to like 1 foot horizontal for every 1 foot.
Isn't there existing riprap there? I thought?
No.
No, there's not really.
No.
I mean, there's some scattered, like stones around there, but it's not really riprap.
Is there, real quick, if I might, because we have lost a lot of the banks since we started to talk about the project
Yeah.
some years ago. Then maybe you know this, maybe you don't, and I could check, is how much we can put back right?
Yeah, how far you can
How
move
far
back.
we can, if we could say, look, when we took it over from Robar, gifted it to the
Yeah.
town. And it was here, right?
Yeah,
Can we bring it back to there to not impede and go
to
back?
go back further.
Back
to
further
the-
into the park.
Into the park, and that was an option. We actually, I remember at the time, we actually thought about that.
Yes.
And it is possible. It's just gonna cost more in terms of the fill material that you need to add to it.
The
So,
next part of that is, can we use sand as a fill?
yeah, that's what we were looking at
Okay.
was sand. So we had put out like rough estimates. I mean, it always varies and it's like there's sometimes we can get like beneficial reuse of sand occasionally, depending on where it's happening. In terms of just like, at the time, we had looked at just like trucking it out and like getting it from the
Well,
quarry.
We just did a project, Rice Associates just did a project
Yeah,
from Fairhaven Yacht Works, because I'm also involved with the sewage authority.
Yeah.
River Water Reclamation. They have a pipe that's on the west side of Shrewsbury Yacht Club. And it has to be covered by law.
okay,
So I organized, so well, Yacht Works needs to get rid of Phil.
Yeah.
Need Phil, it's cheap, it's right there.
Yeah.
This is literally right around, it's
Right
right there
there,
next to
yeah.
it. So I think they could, because they have, what happens with marinas is they have a dredge permit that's a maintenance permit
yes.
that is renewable every 5 years.
Mhm.
That we could probably, if you told us, you know, or somebody did the Stevens or whomever.
Yeah,
Did the analysis, said we need, you know, 1,000 cubic yards, whatever it is,
yeah.
just take that out and dump it, and that's like free.
And that's, yeah. So that is a
So,
nice.
which I've been trying to
Yes.
put, you know, I've been
Yeah.
trying to push this along
Mhm.
from the aspect that we are losing more
Yes,
every day.
As it
That you
goes.
get a northeast.
yeah, any big, that was like the thing that we noticed
That's
too,
why
we're
it's
looking at,
been-
it's like any of those big storms that come, that's gonna slowly eat away at it.
Right.
Both, and honestly, like from both sides, so you get the impacts coming
100%.
from that, and then like the excess rain and rainwater that comes from the other side that eats away on the other
Yeah,
side. So
getting it from both sides.
you get the double win.
So now that we have the issues squared away with Fairhaven Yacht Works, we could probably revisit that, because that was one of the holdups that we did.
Yes,
the
that's what
town
I
was in litigation
heard,
with
yes.
Fairhaven Yacht Works. Because they encroached, but not to get into that.
Mhm.
Yes.
And, but that's behind the town. So in fact, yeah, and
Yeah, so I mean, in terms of like what we would need moving forward, so we had gotten up to the point where we had like some, the rough permits put together. We had our conceptual design. We would need to, well, we'd have to probably revisit this a little because our old site surveys are old now. So we would need new surveys most likely to be done. I think we based the original one off of when they had gotten the property, and I think that's probably several years.
I
ago.
think it was 6 or 7 years ago.
Yeah.
Now I have to look back at the original emails. I think it was 16 or something.
Yeah, so we would likely need new surveys of the site and
Right.
based off of it. So we would need surveys, and then, you know, much of the conceptual design that we kind of looked at would likely still apply, right?
Sure.
There's not gonna be a lot of changes.
As-
It's regrading that bluff. Maybe we can now think about maybe if we have a cheap supply of sand, or we can talk about, instead of like pushing it back, moving it forward, like you mentioned before. That could be an option too. But definitely next step is we would need surveys. And then based off of those, we would need the full engineering designs.
And that was, I know, because we have an in-house engineer as well as an outside engineering firm. And that was kind of held up, because of the
The
litigation.
litigation, yeah.
So I guess Tracy, you would follow up, right, with
Sure,
that department and see,
Sure.
to do that, and then I'll follow up on the other side to see if it's conceivable. To get sand or some kind of
Yeah.
materials there.
Provide to
Yeah.
get permit modifications and make sure that it's clean and whatnot too. so.
Yeah.
Yeah, so well, the one stipulation has to be clean sand.
Yeah,
You
of
can't
course.
just go in there with a bunch of sand. from,
Just get
lot of
the prayers in there.
Yes, no, and but it is, because we just used the same sand that we used for the other project, so.
I wonder, before we go to sort of action and then perhaps bring, Nick into the conversations, he can illuminate us further, stormwater management.
But maybe Zach, you could talk about the other components of, there's living shoreline. As part of this concept, there
Yeah.
are a few other things.
Oh, yeah, so we had the bluff as part of the aspect of this project, regrading it. We talked about, because we couldn't get it as, I want to keep saying shallow, I don't know if that's the right term, what's less steep in terms of a slope?
The shell.
Gradual, more grad, yeah.
More gradual.
We want that, because we
That's
couldn't get it
agreed.
where we ideally wanted.
Yeah, that's
Uh,
what I agree.
we did think we would need some sort of matting to go on top of it to help reinforce it. So we looked at some different matting options. There's still a lot of different options that are available. You can go a little more tougher, or that's gonna be longer lasting. And we think there probably could get something in the middle. We looked at a specific brand that seemed to work pretty well. It's fairly inexpensive, and it's not an extensive section that you need to actually
Can you
cover.
explain to me what, you mean the netting that kind of
So
covers
this,
the? block?
yeah, it would be like some netting that would go, so essentially we would regrade the bluff.
Mhm.
And then on top of that, we would put this netting down, and it's like, it's permeable, so we would also plant through it. So it's just a little bit extra protection of
Until,
that.
yeah.
Before the,
What happens is.
Yeah,
what
like a
the roots-
geotextile, yeah.
Basically stabilize. To give hold, so if you look at the other side of the river, and all of a sudden you'll see a red clay bank,
Mhm.
right, hence the red bank's name.
Ah.
Is they want to see their view, so they cut trees now, the roots die, and they lose your bank.
Yeah,
So this would be the opposite of that.
exactly, yeah, that's exactly it. You want that vegetation,
You gotta have
there, those
vegetation.
roots to hold that sediment or that sand in place. And this is a little bit of like a little bit extra before those roots take hold to make sure it's staying in there. And as they're even in there, it's, it adds a little bit more resiliency.
And it would be better to use an organic material like rope or netting or something rather than do
Yeah,
riprap, which is just
Yeah.
putting rock in.
yeah, there's a lot of like organic materials and
So
then
you
there's
change quite a
different,
bit.
yeah, so there's a lot of core twine is
Yeah.
like real common
Yeah.
now. They use a lot of stuff like that. So yeah, it would be a little extra protective measure that you could put down.
Oh, they'll rope off the boats, basically is what they use.
Yeah.
Depends on whether or not you want it to be permanent addition to stabilize.
Yeah, yeah.
Or if you want it to be a temporary.
And that's it too, yeah, you can go permanent where you make it.
Which is like riprap or something like
Yeah,
that.
they even make like a material, it's probably, it's plastic, so it's not, ideally with,
Yeah.
with stuff, but they make more of that stuff and then they make it more natural that will degrade
Yeah.
through
Hemp,
time.
hemp
Yeah,
and
it's
stuff
okay,
like
well,
that.
yeah, I'm gonna pour a while.
Yeah.
It takes a while. to
Yeah,
do
it takes,
so-
yeah, it would take a while, yeah, it would last for a while, so there's that aspect of it. We had talked, we actually applied for a grant, I forget the actual grant itself, but it was working with Stevens. To incorporate some stormwater infrastructure in the site as well. We thought that would be a nice matchup. Because there's been a lot of work with like living shorelines and the importance of living shorelines, and there's been a lot of work with the importance of stormwater management, but there hasn't been a lot that combine them together, and they kind of have like overlaps of benefits that they provide.
Do you know if that's still an option open to us?
I don't know if
That
the,
program shut down.
well, you know what, I don't know, I could go back and look through it, I think it was, I don't know, I don't remember it off the top of my head, and again, it was a couple years ago.
Yeah,
But I can,
There are older grants coming out anyway.
and there's lots of, yeah,
Can I-
there's lots of grants.
I meant to do more research on this, so
Oh.
maybe I wanted to come with some information, but I know with the Inflation Reduction Act, there
Yeah.
was a specific mention to living shorelines. Do you have any clue on how that funding works, or, and I can look into it.
Yeah, I mean, I have a general idea. So right now, there's a lot of money that is coming and a lot of it is going towards environmental projects.
Yeah.
Offhand, I would have to look at the specifics, but I do know that money generally gets passed on to different agencies or organizations that then put out requests for proposals.
so we
and put out
wouldn't
grants.
go, right, we wouldn't go directly to the.
Yes,
It would
but
go-
Yeah.
someone has that.
But
Usually
someone
when
has
you-
the money.
Stevens or liberal
Yeah,
society.
we recently applied to a grant that is coming off of the infrastructure that came off.
The newest
infrastructure.
one,
Yeah,
yeah,
Yes,
okay.
so that money got passed to, I believe, NOAA,
here's Noah and Fish and Wildlife.
NOAA and Fish and Wildlife, and I think we applied for, and then they put out stuff. So we applied for that one, and it was specifically for living shorelines. I think that one that we applied for.
Did you-
Um, Hmm?
Did you get these?
Well, there was 2 phases to it. So there was initial pre-proposal phase that we passed, and then we went for the full, to put the full proposal in. So we submitted it. We haven't heard back yet, so.
Now, if you were to get that grant, how would you pick the project
Well, that one's for specific projects already.
already?
So that we designed that for specific projects.
So those are shovel-ready
So those,
projects.
yeah, those ones are essentially,
Right.
yeah, a lot of them, yeah. But again, like, we're in a good spot here, at least in terms of this one, because we are further along in the process a little bit. Any further that we get is always better, like as close as you get to shovel ready, or just being like, we're ready to go if we have money.
So what do we need to do today?
Yeah.
And who needs to do it to be shovel ready?
So to be shovel ready, you would need basically you would need all your permits, right? Everything up in place up until like you get the money, and then you can go out and start actually doing the stuff.
So we would work again with you to do the permit.
Yeah, you need permitting, yeah, to
Okay.
get to
New
that.
surveys.
So yes, we would likely need new surveys, and then,
How does that work with the process? Sorry to like step back, but like with new surveys,
They do.
you guys do
They
it,
did it.
and then where's that
We-
funding come for that? Is that
Borough,
That would have to go.
yeah,
the borough ones?
yeah.
yeah.
The last time the borough paid for whatever your expenses. were.
Yeah, the borough paid for, we had an agreement with the borough, and because we were like a specialty service, it worked it out, so I know there's some issues about like going to bid with certain things, but because we're specialty, we can just get higher. But yeah, the surveys last time, there was the survey that was done of the entire site that had been done when it was transferred over. And then we had worked with Monmouth University to get the additional surveys done out there, more of like the bathymetry. Yes, the Urban Coastal Institute. So we had worked with them to get the further surveys and then just combine them.
So what do we need?
So
in terms
if I could chime in there for a second. Sorry, guys. This is Nick Porchinsky. I apologize. I had logistic problems today. I had back to school night with my kids, so I wasn't able to be there in person with you. But back in 2016, when the borough did acquire the property, Nigerian did not only a meets and bounds survey of the property, they also did a topographic survey, which encompassed all the elevations, locating the trees, and that stuff. But obviously, since that project has already kind of gone to the next level with the park, there's been benches installed, there's been irrigation installed, there's been some additions to the park that would need to get updated, and we could work with our vendors or the surveyor to update the existing conditions map, prior to, moving forward with what Zach was talking about with the DEP, the General Permit 24 for the shorelines aspect of the living shorelines. Just to step back a little bit too, is that during that same time that the Littoral Society came into the fold with this project, we'd also worked with Rutgers through the New Jersey Sea Grant Consortium to kind of look at impervious coverages around town. And we worked with Chris Abrupta regarding this project site with regard to stormwater management. De Normandy Avenue and the historic district does not have a lot of existing stormwater infrastructure. In other words, pipes, inlets, and things like that. Most of the water flows via the curb line, via the gutter flow, down to the beach line, to the beach, and just flows over land. So working with Rutgers, they came up with some bioretention rain garden designs for collecting or looking at addressing some of the stormwater concerns. If you take a look at the drainage, the drainage area for this project area, it's about a little less than 10 acres. So you about have like 10 acres, which goes from the back of the properties on Fairhaven Road to the back of the properties on Gillespie, and kind of combines, that area to River Road. So that gives a general, snapshot of the stormwater that's being collected and coming down the Normandy and into the Navesink River. And any proposed project for the stormwater aspect will need to address that collection, water quality, green infrastructure, and all the new DEP rules. When the borough was looking at this project in its entirety, they were just not looking at the living shoreline aspect. They were looking at the stormwater aspect and also the uplands portion of it. And because of various circumstances beyond our control with the adjacent property and various other issues, it kind of stalled in certain aspects. But again, like we said, I think the residents and the mayor and councils all want to move forward with the project, and it's just a function of, connecting all those phases and connecting all those concepts into a project. So obviously, the living shoreline is one part of that project. The stormwater management is the other project, and then the third part is the actual uplands area. And there was discussions about not just the uplands area of the Roparts Park, but the actual De Normandy Avenue, the right-of-way portion of it, and utilizing portions of that right-of-way, vacating it and utilizing it for either the rain garden area or for parking or for various different things. And from an in-house engineering aspect and from just being around town and seeing how how this passive park works, obviously parking is an issue, stormwater is an issue, the living shoreline is an issue. Putting all those components into one encompassing project would be the best avenue. So I hope that kind of gives a little more background on some of that.
Okay.
100%, thank you.
All those things at once.
Correct, which, can we bring the entities, Chris Abrupta's group, as well as Stevens, and you guys are already at the table, back together again and come up with a whole plan?
Yeah, no, again, there's no question that we could use those existing resources and continue to plan, design, and revise under the direction and guidance of mayor and council and figuring out what they want to do. There's no question that we can kind of incorporate those, and if we need to, in-house work or existing consulting engineer that can help us with the some of the stuff as well. The project in itself, obviously is small in nature. It's only about 140 linear feet of coastline or whatever. It's not like the Gulf Coast where you're doing miles and miles of armored living shorelines and have a major impact with regard to protecting inland infrastructure or providing for flood management or what have you. But just like we talked about the other project along the dock, the visual impact and the education and the awareness impact of this project is definitely well up there. So if you have to rate this from an engineering standpoint and a world impact standpoint, maybe it's only or 2 or 3, but from an environmental kind of an awareness and from a demonstration project and like a case study like Zach was mentioning, it definitely has a value of a 9 or 10 when it comes to the bang for your buck and for the visibility and the educational purpose of it. So that's something to keep in mind as well.
Thank you, Nick. I think that's all our thoughts, 100%. So then I guess it kicks back to Tracy and go back to Borough Council, right?
Sure, I think, when I'm, here as your liaison, I'm thinking tonight is a good night, given the fact that the Environmental Commission has, of course, members from the public, but we have Nick Porchinsky here, borough official, and we also have, Zach. This might be a great time to ask any questions, explore loose ends or thoughts you might have, and then I sort of sense the consensus of the commission, but actually to formalize that consensus and put it in the form of a vote or an action or a memorandum, and it can be conveyed to the council. I'll be glad to do that for you.
Okay, so I'd like to actually go a little bit out of order here with this because this is a special project that we have any questions or concerns, let's address them now from the boards, from the commission standpoint. And then I would like, if there's any input from the public, let's do that as it just pertains to this project. And then we'll open up the later part of the meeting for open comments.
I have a question. And again, I'm coming this kind of late to the game, so my apologies for not having as much information, but how did they identify this location? Is just because this is more public property and we have the beach there? Were there other locations that were identified?
So
Can I go back to the long history?
Jonathan and I.
Councilman John Peters, who was there when we bought it.
Right.
That property had not transferred out of the family since the 1850s.
Mhm.
And it came up and it was gonna be sold. And in our original master plan for the town, one of the identified items was lack of waterfront access and public park on it. And tonight, I'm actually happy to be sitting here and hearing all this because we knew at the time that it was an open page. We were just starting the process and it was gonna take a long time. And I always reflect on the fact, everybody privately bought it for, I don't know, 1.5 million, I forgot the number, 1.5 million, but we got a bunch of grant money, but the town bought it. And at the time, everybody's, what are you gonna do with it? And everybody said, we'll figure it out. And here we are tonight figuring it out. And Fairhaven Fields, when the borough bought Fairhaven Fields back in the 70s, I think we paid $785,000 for it. And everybody screamed at the time of how much money we
What are
were
we gonna do with
wasting to buy Fairhaven Fields. And so now we're sitting here with, at least we have waterfront property and we're trying to figure out what to do next. And that's the challenge. right?
So, and then I came about looking at it, being the marine guy, was had a relationship with the Littoral Society. And we were talking about living shorelines, and I looked at it, and from an engineering perspective, right, Nick, right away, you had to do something to retain what we've now lost, right? Which is, it is what it is, it's water under the dam or dirt in the river, whatever, however, whatever call it, but it just lent itself to Nick's point that it was a great area. Number one, we had to preserve it. Number two, it's a great visible area to do a living shoreline. It's easy just to build a bulkhead, right? That's what we do. We just build bulkheads and that's it. And they have some uses and still their purpose. But what we thought with this is to keep it as natural as we could, but still retain the bank. And because at the end of the day, all we have is some dirt at the end of a road on the river. So we need to retain that dirt and keep it as a viable park. So to Nick's point, that's why, it's really the only place we can do this.
Yeah.
Where Baton Road, it's a little beach there, you don't really have the erosion issue.
Yeah.
So it doesn't make sense to put something there just to put it there. So that's how it came about, yeah, but great question. Anybody else from the commission?
There were some questions that were emailed to me. If you
All right,
want,
so we're gonna open up to public now,
not from
I think it
public,
was
from
from us.
commission members.
Oh, okay. Sure, so we'll do that and then we'll go to public.
What would the maintenance entail and is DPW equipped to handle the maintenance, manpower, equipment, etc.?
Yeah, I mean, so I can answer that a little bit. There's, in general, so as a general in living shorelines, there is an initial maintenance aspect that is higher than in putting in like a hard structure. So there would be initial maintenance either, if sand does move, maybe putting some of that sand back, if it shifts a little bit and where it would go, there would be some maintenance with planting. We probably have to come back and replant a couple times if things don't take, et cetera, like that. So I don't, again, because this is a relatively small project, I don't, and actually how it's like situated where it is, I don't see a whole ton of maintenance going forward. I think once that bluff is vegetated and that is stabilized, I think that's largely going to be self-sustaining after that. So it's generally, it'll be a little bit of the upfront maintenance as things, before things really, you know, before the plants really take and all that, that you'd likely see, but I don't anticipate a huge fall
So-
in terms of.
And there's no like new machines or there's no.
No,
like,
so if we,
equipment at all.
right, so if we saw, say it eroded a little bit, you're gonna have settlement, right? If we
Yeah.
put sand there, it's gonna settle.
Yeah.
We would go down there with the front end loader, move the sand a little bit, which
Yeah.
we own.
And you might not even have to do, you might not even have to do that, like, it's always gonna change and shift a little bit.
And that's nice, that's nature.
It's natural, it's likely not gonna shift in any dramatic way, I wouldn't foresee that would be a huge thing.
Yeah,
It would just be the natural shifting as it goes. Yeah, so I think a lot of the maintenance would be maybe some of the plants and making sure the plant's established in terms of that. And then at least for the living shoreline aspect, and then I don't know about, I can't speak about the stormwater management if that's incorporated, but there would likely be some maintenance with that as well, at least in terms of plant.
Yeah, the only thing, we don't have a pipe there, so I don't know, Nick, to your point, if there would be, I guess the best is to have some sort of culvert where it would divert the water from going down the chute right onto the beach to erode everything down there and have it diverted into a rain garden type.
Yeah, so
situation, and planting involved there too.
Right, so I think Christy might have forwarded to all to the members of the environmental commission, and it's you know, there's a link to the Rutgers plan, and it shows the rain garden, the bioretention system that's kind of conceptually designed. And again, that has to be high enough out of the floodplain, so it's not constantly getting, flooded or inundated. It's got to be in the uplands area above the 100-year floodplain. And it basically allows for a stone medium that's, 18 inches to 2 feet in depth, and then encompasses native plants and things in that nature. So it's not just like a rock area. It's a rain garden, and they have conceptual designs and renderings associated with it, showing cone flowers and cardinal flowers and a dogwood type tree or what have you associated with it. In addition to providing the public access that's associated with the passive park, allowing people to walk down with their kayaks or their stand-up paddle boards or what have you. And again, that it's conceptual, but there wouldn't actually be an outfall from that rain garden. It would be basically the water would be collected. It would infiltrate into the sand underneath the gravel, and then kind of organically and naturally flow into, be filtered, be cleaned, and then go into the Navesink River. That's the whole idea.
In terms of.
Right, so it'd be the same idea at Norwood School or any of the gardens.
Yeah, in terms of some of like, especially with like rain garden things and maintenance with that, they're also good projects to get different like community groups involved with. So whether there are school groups or scouts or anything like that, that's something that they can adopt. So it's
Yeah,
really
we've
good.
been pretty good
Yeah.
at bringing in the garden club and the
Oh,
school.
yeah, yeah.
And so.
Yeah, can I just say, I mean, one of the questions we have to ask is what's the scale and scope of each piece of it, right? Trying to do everything we just talked about sounds like a lot of money to me. And then the question is, how are you gonna phase it, or can you do it in pieces? And move forward in a productive way, because that's the next piece of the game.
I think the big thing is get the drawings, get the permits, get that. Along with that would be a proposal of what it would cost, the expense of it, and then also, and then going out to the grants. And because I think when we initially talked about it, it was pretty much, but we were only talking about.
Yeah, no, I guess the question is, what's the limits of the project,
Right, the only thing we talked about before was the living shoreline, and that was like $25,000.
No, but that's
covered by the grant from, but to do, I think. If we were to, I don't know, and Nick would have to weigh in how much real infrastructure we're talking about to feed a rain garden. To do the rain garden itself is fairly, cheap. It's inexpensive. You're basically digging out a hole nicely, putting some nice media in there, stone and so on and so forth. So it filters it. It's not a huge expense, especially if we're down there anyway.
And if you're already.
We're already there
You're already there.
to do the living shoreline.
Yeah, I guess it's the question, we were talking way.
And we
about-
would take that material and put it on the bank.
Yeah, no, I just mean the scale and scope you were talking about was the whole stormwater management. We have a lot of sheet flow in that area, and obviously I would do it this piece by piece. I would take care of the bank first and then
I
look
would
at the
just say there
street
might
flow.
be something beneficial about doing them together.
I think you do it all in one shot.
One supports the
One-
other.
Yeah.
Right.
Because you're gonna remove dirt from here, you're gonna put it at the living
It's just a
shoreline.
question.
Yeah, I don't think it's that, and Nick, you'd have to weigh in, because I think the most expensive part would be to divert the water from going down the hill, right? To divert it into a rain garden, which is not expensive to dig, especially if we're gonna use that material that we dig out of there onto the living shoreline.
Again, part of the design or part of the review is locating that stormwater management system. Again, it has to be out of the floodplain, so you have to look at the elevations. And then at that point, you're looking at square footage and area. And it's not just the area that's associated with the parcel of the park. What was initially discussed and talked about with Rutgers was vacating a portion of the Normandy Avenue all the way up towards the driveway entrance to the yacht works. So incorporate, first of all, you'd be removing impervious coverage that's associated with the Normandy Avenue, and you'd be switching that from impervious coverage to the rain garden aspect of things. And we would have to review, obviously, there's right-of-way considerations with regard to utilities, utility access for the yacht works, and various other utility considerations that would need to be reviewed and taken into consideration. But the thought initially was to kind of use some of that vacated Normandy Avenue to kind of locate the stormwater system instead of using the park, because the park is valuable in itself as a vista and a view screen for the Navesink, and is valuable in that respect as well. So you have to kind of balance all those different concepts and ideas and come out with what makes sense and what the mayor and council wants to do. And then also, the parking considerations of what's available, what the need is, if it's on street, if it's off street, or if it's necessary. Those are discussions and things that would need to be reviewed in connection with this. I was also trying to send everybody a copy of the existing photos via an email, so that you could see the existing conditions today. I don't know if you guys were able to see that or not. I know in theory, I could share my screen, but it was just photos from the September 9th.
What did you observe, Nick?
It was more kind of documented the existing conditions. DPW maintains the lawn cutting. We've taken we've taken effort to maintain the bluff so that the weed trees don't get too high, so that you can kind of look over and see the sailboats and everything. Obviously, the benches were installed as part of the project. There's a picture looking up the Normandy Avenue where you see actually the Borough vehicle, and then the slope coming down to the beach, and you see the low tide and the high tide kind of residual from seaweed or grass or what have you. It shows that if you look, you can see the bulkhead associated with the adjacent site, opposite the yachtworks boat slips. And then it kind of also shows I'm not sure who initially placed it or if it was naturally occurring, some of the broken up concrete and pavement that was talked about by Zach adjacent to the bulkhead to kind of maybe prevent some of that, scouring or erosion at the base of the bulkhead. And it shows a general shaping condition of the slope today with vegetation. There's some wetlands, grasses, sawgrass. There's some weed trees. There's some locusts, baby locusts, and some other stuff that's kind of there. And obviously, the DPW is very conscious not to just go ahead and remove that underbrush, because that provides stability for the slope, even though it is steep. There is still some value to that. And then adjacent to the bulkhead, you could see the wave attenuation that scours. Depending on the wind direction and the fetch and the high tide and stuff, you could see some of the scouring directly adjacent to the bulkhead. So those are just some 5 pictures that I had taken last week. I wanted to share with everybody to get a better idea, or questions came up. So I hope that everybody can see that. I know it's a little difficult with the hybrid meetings and stuff, but it kind of shows a snapshot as of this month.
I also have some from probably 5 years ago. It'd be interesting to look at those compared to what it looks like today. But again,
I have one that ends up on the cover of the journal.
the really,
Magazine,
did you
yeah.
get paid for it?
Can I ask,
okay.
so I just want to make sure we have the full picture when we are bringing it to the council, by the time they get to the council. And Nick mentioned utilities considerations in the parking. Now, in your review, I'm assuming you guys do you look at the utility considerations and the parking, or who would that be? And
Yeah, that was not us, yeah.
so then how do we make sure that part gets?
That's Nick and his engineer and the engineering
Okay.
team, right, Nick?
Yeah. So
Yes.
that would
I say
kind of
yes.
Yeah.
that would need to be addressed. Obviously, we can't cut off. There's existing utility poles that are used by the yachtworks for their marina infrastructure, and if any type of vacation of the Normandy was taking place to locate or to use some of that area for the park, we would need to address those and make considerations for that.
I don't know if you have to vacate the right of way. I've been doing research on this, and you could just probably utilize it and not change the status of it. It might take more money and effort to move things and change the status than to just do whatever we're doing around the existing right of way.
Right, yeah, no.
Yeah,
The rights way is old.
That's
Yeah,
that's
I
a
mean,
legal question or legal consideration, but generally speaking, the idea of when I say vacating, I'm saying no longer use the road for vehicular traffic. We'd have to have some type of engineered end of roadway treatment so that people aren't driving down the end of the road there. But generally speaking, it wouldn't be used for vehicular. It would just be passively for pedestrians and such. So in that respect too, when we talk about maintenance of the living shoreline, we would have to, understand the implications of that as well, because machinery, equipment, if we're putting a rain guard and stormwater management system at the bottom of the Normandy, we would have to understand that. And then we'd also have to understand the implications for the surrounding, areas, who uses that, via fire, first aid, emergency. Obviously the marina's there, but that's always been an area where slated for quick and dirty getting into the Navasink, if need be, is what I'm told. So there's things that need to be kind of vetted and reviewed in its entirety.
Great. Thank you.
Ralph has a question.
Yes, Ralph.
Can you hear me?
Yes, we can.
Okay, good. I am personally opposed to doing anything much that causes people to park cars near there. I think that we want to leave the neighborhood as much intact as we can, not dissect the neighborhood because there's a project that's going on the seashore. They should be able to walk to it from River Road, for example. Anybody else have any
100%.
feelings on parking?
I would not, if you're saying, if I'm understanding you, as I would not put in a designated parking area there.
Correct.
Yes,
Or not, or
I wouldn't, yeah, I wouldn't want to have, I wouldn't want to have it anyway. That, yeah, people would be allowed to park there.
There are enough problems.
Yeah.
Right, I think we're all in agreement with that, yes.
Okay, there are enough problems during the day.
Yes, there is a private driveway.
There's hardly any parking possible.
Is Nick's concern that we're taking away parking? Isn't that what he's?
I think maybe he's concerned.
No, the initial conceptual plans, the initial conceptual plans that were discussed back in 2016, they provided for, I think, 4 spots at the far top of the property that were located off the shared driveway up top. So if you take a look at the Rutgers site plan, you would see that there's 4 places, and they had proposed using pervious pavement and doing something to that effect, either stone or porous pavement or something that meets the current rules and regulations with stormwater. But it was, that's a policy decision that mayor and council would have to kind of direct, the consultants, the engineers, and whoever that's looking at this project in its entirety, and evaluate the scope.
It'll be important when you consider this to recognize that the neighbors near there will have their own strong views. Parking will not improve these views.
I would, I think we're all in favor of not having.
Let me just say, I'm not in that mode because I think we always think about ADA access issues. And so I believe our original plan had a limited number of spaces, particularly for ADA access. So I think you have to think about the fact that not everybody is physically able to walk to these places. And obviously, if you're on one side of town, if you're on the far west side of town, that's not a walkable distance for someone with limited mobility. So I
And
would
the thought,
certainly be open to limited amount of parking. As
Right.
opposed to
The
a
thought
absolute
process-
prohibition.
the thought process was also to provide some type of, loading zone. If people have kayaks or stand-up paddles, that they could, at least, come down, drop them off, and then, either,
Also,
have some considerations for that as well.
thank you, Nick, exactly.
Thanks, Nick.
There was
And it could
another,
be pervious coverage, obviously, it would have to, if there was a designated drop-off spot, let's not call it a parking spot.
Well,
It would definitely have to be pervious coverage. And then it would be for loading and unloading kayaks or.
Yeah, there's a lot of details about extending the sidewalk, or stopping the sidewalk. Down to Normandy right now, it's kind of a mix mash of old concrete curb and stone dust that kind of gets washed away that the DPW maintains. Again, there was some preliminary, some beautification that was done. There was some grasses that were planted along the edge there. You know, one of the issues or problems historically was always the outworks, and you know, you have people coming down and parking and accessing their boats and stuff along the Normandy there. And just making sure that everybody's working together. Obviously, this is a public park. Access should be, you know, available to all that want to utilize it. It's as discussed earlier by one of the members, it's part of our master plan to provide public access to the waterfront, and that's something based on various surveys and various outreach programs. The residents of Fairhaven are recognized that the Navasink and access to it is important to them.
Do we have any other emails?
Yes. How long do we expect the sand to last before it needs to be replenished? And are there any other sustainable and earth-friendly attractive options?
So in terms of the sand, the sand we were adding to the beach, not the bluff. And again, looking at the aerial imagery, there's not a whole ton of shifting of that sand that we found. It's basically fairly protected there. So I mean, I don't have a great answer in terms of how long it should last. I would imagine it would be relatively stable after an initial settling period, because there's not a whole ton of erosion that's occurring at that beach right there. It's more that bluff that needs.
So littoral drift
Yeah,
is
see you.
to the east, isn't it?
It is, but see what you have also, which is unique to this property, which is actually helpful in this case, is that you have a bulkhead on
Yeah,
both
it's sheltered
sides.
in there.
So if
Yeah.
you think of a groin, right,
Yeah.
which is the old jetties, which that's a whole nother issue, that you'll keep most of that material between those
Yeah.
two entities, okay?
Yeah.
So it might wash back and forth. You might
Yeah.
have some more on one side
Yeah.
one day and more on the other side on the other day. But for the most part, that erosion we're seeing is just the pounding and the energy of the.
I guess I was kind of trying to look at what would be some long-term costs that maybe we aren't.
Going forward, there shouldn't, again,
Once it's sustainable, it should be.
yeah, there shouldn't be a whole ton of long-term costs
Yeah.
moving forward. If, like we kind of talked about, there's the initial maintenance aspect of things going forward, but once it's, in terms of once that bluff is stabilized, that should be relatively stable and intact
Yeah,
going
And
forward.
it'll be all natural.
Yeah, and then, yeah, like we talked about, that sand might shift a little bit within that.
yeah, but
smaller
not, it's
system,
not
but
eroding completely.
yeah, I wouldn't imagine, based on what we looked at in the past with the site, I wouldn't imagine that it would all get taken away and then out into the
Yeah.
thing. It would likely stay there. So yeah, I don't anticipate a whole ton of like future cost, like it would be like every year that you.
Yeah, that was kind of my concern.
That's all.
Any other emails?
No.
Yeah.
So you're talking about flattening the slope. It's
Yes.
approximately one, and that's done by fill or by cutting.
Well, you could do either way. You could do it by fill and add fill material to it, or you could cut it back. You have options available. in terms of-
The idea is to fill it so we don't lose more property.
Yeah.
Well, I know, but I mean, if we're going from this, it can be done by cutting it back.
Right, yes,
That's
if
why
you-
you're-
if you-
We're losing property.
So if you cut back, you're gonna lose, you're
You're losing
you're
your-
losing cost. So if you fill, exactly, you can,
If we could fill it with
Forward.
clean sand, if the DEP would allow that, which I'm pretty sure they would, but based on your.
yeah, I mean.
Because
if it's
it
tested,
was
yeah.
we own this much, now we own this much because it's cut back. So if we fill that back in, we're not losing this up
Yeah, right.
on the other side.
Yeah, there might
What
have
kind of
to
slope
be a
would
little
we
bit.
be talking? 2 to
So
1?
we, again, when we originally proposed it, we looked at like a 2-to-1, because when we were talking about cutting it back at that time, so we would be cutting back into your upland part. And we had suggested a 2-to-1 slope, just because it gives us a little bit more. And we were worried about cutting too much into what is your park now.
Mhm.
So, yeah, there's a possibility, I guess, if we're adding more fill, maybe we could adjust that a little bit to make it, but I don't know if we, again, like the less grade you make it, whatever the proper term is. I'm gonna look it up when I go home.
Flatter.
Yeah, the flatter.
Well,
you
less
make it-
grade, it would be less grade. it
Less
would be
grade,
less of an angle.
so the flatter you make that, the more area you need. So whether you were gonna push that forward into at least some of the area that's been lost now, and you could push it forward back into there, toward your beach area and fill that way, or you cut back your upland area.
there's
Or
gonna
you
be
do
a
a
half-
combination of both.
Right, and because there's gonna be a happy medium where the DEP says, okay, you can fill till here.
Yeah.
Okay, that gives us 2-to-1, that's great.
Right.
Or do we want 3-to-1, then we're gonna have to cut back into losing some.
Yeah,
water.
so if this is like, and we can look back at like photos and try and probably
Mhm.
make the case based on like other surveys too, like if you've lost a significant amount of that fluff in the times from our initial surveys, I don't anticipate that they would be like, no, you can't refill that necessarily. I think we can make the case that.
That's typically what's happened.
Yeah.
In.
Ralph has a question.
Yeah.
Thank you. That area, as you pointed out, that area is almost devoid of sewage. We rely on curb flow, street flow, sheet flow for getting the water out. And that's true along many of our streets on the Navasink. Would we be wise to try to put together a plan for installing storm sewers in that area and see how they would interface with this living shoreline, what we would be doing? So if we laid it, I don't know what our plans are to do that even, but if we did that later, we'd want it to be compatible with the living shoreline.
I think that Nick and we all agreed that we're better off to do the opposite and build a rain garden and a bioretention system rather than putting more infrastructure, hard infrastructure to just let the water go into the river.
Well,
And
true.
that is all part of the same project.
True. It comes
And it's
down
clean.
pretty hard if you've watched it in a rainstorm.
Well, I watched it.
Water comes down the street pretty hard.
It does, but I think based on the Rutgers study, which we have, they estimated sheet flow on a major rain event of 1.5 inches, and they give us the specs on how large of a bioretention or rain garden we had to facilitate to take that water.
Yeah, wouldn't that
Okay,
be
but more and
requested?
more, much after the Rutgers study was done and more in the newspapers, we're seeing incredible rainstorms and we're supposed to be getting them with some regularity, 3-4 inches an hour kind of
But
thing.
I think that also like the ones that they spec'd out at Knollwood and such, they do have a overflow where it wouldn't just,
It's
Make
taken into
a-
account when they're constructing these, they take into account, like there's, maximum flows and the
Right.
shorter storm events.
Yeah, I imagine Rutgers would have more of that.
Rutgers
more of
did
the
it, and-
details
yeah.
in their designs.
and when we did it, and I would say it's great there, is we look at the permeability of the soil, what's there at sand. So it's gonna take a lot of water back into the,
Correct me if I'm wrong, you're asking to put in a major outfall, that's probably a pretty significant permitting process, right? I mean, we're talking probably a 2-foot or 3-foot diameter pipe. If we're talking about trying to convert that area from sheet
and
flow
we're,
into.
and we're doing the opposite of what we're trying to do. at
Right,
EDC.
exactly, you're gonna be accelerating everything, right?
Right.
I mean,
You're doing the opposite of what we're trying to accomplish and not have more water going into the river and less. So this would be a great project to take tens of thousands of gallons of water and put it back into the.
Get it filtered.
Yeah, well,
It goes into it goes into the river, but it gets filtered.
we have a bunch of sheet flow.
Climate
in
cha-
town.
climate- climate change is here now. And
We understand that.
we're seeing it more and more. And I think we have to take a look at the plans that we've got, make sure they're consistent with it.
That's incorporated when Chris Abrupt, this group did the analysis and they'll update it. But I know in August we didn't get any rain. Hence
So
my
my yard,
tan.
yeah, well, in my yard.
Right, so I mean, it comes in cycles, so,
The other piece of managing sheet flow, I think, is to try and talk about how to slow it down and get it filtered, right?
right. And
And we
that's
have
why
a
we
sheet flow, but if it goes into the right kind of structure,
Yes.
where it's buffered correctly,
Right.
what we're trying to do, I think, is instead of just putting in major infrastructure, we're talking about trying to manage how the flow gets to the river.
Don't wanna-
It's eventually getting there, right?
Yes, but if it comes in and I can drink it, or we can drink it, that's fine.
Yeah.
Which you can, once it's filtered.
Right.
Natural. So there's another business we can have, or even water.
All you gotta do is watch the rain garden up here.
You watch the rain gardens.
No, I was rain garden down here in a major event. I
Yeah,
mean,
this-
very little water is coming through at the end of the
No.
day. Most of it goes in. and
It
dry.
goes, well, there is, and there is a drain in there also. But if you look at Knollwood, there's two of them there. There's one that has hard pan under it because it's somebody dumped something there and it drains slowly and hence the plants are all still pretty much growing.
Yeah.
You look at the other side, it's really dry because it's nice flow, you know, and then, so. I think we want to do the opposite. We don't want more infrastructure. We want more natural elements to let Mother Nature clean the water.
Green
Um,
infrastructure.
Yeah,
Green
there
infrastructure.
you go.
Any more comments from the commission or questions? Do we have any questions, direct questions as relates to this from the audience?
Mayor? Oh, he dropped.
The mayor?
He
Eh,
was on, he dropped.
we already saw him once tonight.
So what are the steps that we are taking forward? What is happening?
Well, if we have, I want to, go ahead.
I always go last.
Oh, I don't.
Yeah.
Bonnie Christie, I wanted to do that with, and who's that? So thrilled that this project is coming back. That all of this work that was done, 10 years ago, whatever, it's not gonna go to waste. And it was fascinating listening to Nick, and that's so great. I mean, and he's so right about the visual, environmental, education aspect. I mean, people are gonna get out there and go, wow, I don't know how this is how you collect stormwater, but frankly, this is how we're gonna help you. I mean, it's just so, it's such an opportunity for such an important educational piece in this town about the environment. Absolutely love it. And I think what you're saying about collecting stormwater, I mean, the living shoreline is one, what you do that to save the river. And then you don't collect the stormwater that's running off of 10 acres. It's interesting, and I remember looking at the Rutgers study, it was all about the opportunities for rain gardens all throughout our town. It strikes me that a couple of them were up, this is what you call upland or whatever.
Oh, yeah.
At the smart school, at the animal hospital, I mean, there might be other opportunities to, as Ralph's saying, he's worried about all this water dissipated up a little bit more. I mean, I don't know, so I'm thrilled. And one last thing, having walked down there and looked at that shore, there's an oak tree, there's a couple native trees. I would love to see it go out instead of, taking down the trees.
100%.
But I think there was some worth saving down.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Make you work. Come on.
Hi, Stephanie Adams, I echo everything that Bonnie said. I love the opportunity to restore what the river front used to look like, what the shorelines used to look like. I think that's an amazing opportunity for our kids. If we can ever get them out of the schools to go and look at these things. It's really a project worth undertaking. I'm wondering about the parking spots. When Robarts Park, when that was sort of envisioned and that was created, was there thought given at that point to putting in parking spots for that park, or is it something now that we're thinking about doing because of the living shoreline?
Well, no, the living shoreline, when we came up with the idea in 2016, when we spearheaded it with the Littoral Society, there was, the conceptual plan had parking spots. What we're saying today is to not have parking spots, or if there is a spot, it would be pervious coverage, meaning that it would not be paved for unloading and loading, but not having parking per se.
Because I think people at this point, residents, you pretty much, you scooch in, you unload, and then you go park
Correct.
somewhere else.
Mm.
My biggest, well, I don't like parking spots, period, but my other concern is I feel like parking spots are always gonna be a contentious issue.
Mhm.
And so if you make that part of the project, you're gonna get opposition and then that might cause delays. So to the
Yeah.
extent that we can just never use those words where this project is concerned. Because I think as, you know, again, this is something for residents and we can, most of us can walk or bike there. I appreciate the ADA considerations. I think that, again, I know several people who kayak down there, who launch their kayaks, and everyone kind of, you go down, you take your stuff out, and then you go park somewhere else, and
That's,
it's all good. I also loved what, Jonathan, what you were saying about the history of this project and how, land gets acquired in Fairhaven for these purposes. I think that it's always difficult when you have an opportunity to kind of, you know, look at the costs, it always feels like more than we should be spending. But specifically, I know there's so back and forth going on the lot at the end of Fairhaven Road. But, you know, if this project is as successful as I think it will be and as beautiful as I think it will be, I think that that is another opportunity to restore the shoreline to what it was meant to look like, you know, and to, you know, we don't have to do something grand anytime soon. We could just go, you know, take down the house and then restore the shoreline and then just let it be another natural area in town, but down by the river, something that residents can enjoy and again, learn from. And my third question is, the fill, is that always gonna be sand? Could you use silt?
no.
Because there's this pond.
Well, so one of the times one of the times that I whispered over to Jesse was, you know, we could possibly, the problem there is, first of all, we already have a place to put that
Oh,
material.
we do? Okay.
And it has to drain. And if you put silt, quote unquote silt there, that's finer particles than
It's not
sand,
as well.
it's just gonna go into the river anyway.
Great points
So-
of humor.
Right,
No, and I
but,
saw the-
but I did, when I whispered, one of the times I whispered to yes, was like. The pond stuff, but then I thought about it, number one, most of that.
Straight
material-
line, Brian.
Right, most, thank
Oh,
you.
that's fun.
Most of that is, number one, it would be more costly to do because it's further away to truck it. And most of that is organic, like rotten leaves
Right.
and duckweed and all, which is the top layer. As you get further down, they're not gonna get to a dirt consistency ever because we're not dredging the pond. It's hydro raking. So that's organic material that would be better suited to grow stuff in the natural.
I just didn't want the
Yeah.
meeting to end without talking about the pond.
It's on the agenda. It's on, I've been talking about the pond 20 years. Thank you, Steph.
Thank you, kind words. Can I just say that, you know, this is one of those things, and Tracy's having to say this, and, you know, these decisions are for 100 years. They're not for us. They're not there for the future of the town. And, you know, we bit the bullet back then to buy this one. And I think it was the right decision. I'm still very comfortable with the decision, and I feel that we all made the right decision. And us arguing about what to do next is a good thing. Because if we had passed it up, we'd all be crying.
You got a
about
one-shot
more.
deal.
Yeah, you know,
Never
you
done
don't get it. You don't get it. And then you're sitting there after the fact saying, oh, what if?
If anything to do with anything.
So,
Road, right after Broadmoor, as we're going towards, as we're going east.
that was deeded to the town that will never be developed by a very wealthy man.
Cool, it's all
Yep.
natural, it's all just grass,
Yep.
and, but that's one of my favorite.
On Robson Road.
I was envisioning, something like that, where you
Yeah.
just have the grass, it's maybe you have an elevated wall.
Yeah, it's on Rosen Road.
Yeah, that was deeded by an extremely wealthy family. So they could afford to give a lot of property away.
River view, but it
Mhm.
is,
Yeah.
and it's what it's supposed to look like. And the more areas that we can kind of create like that in our town, I think, you know, we will all, and our children will be better for it.
Yeah, that was deeded to the town with the stipulation it could never be.
Yeah,
It's in a trust.
Good.
In defense of the council at the time, I would just like to say that I think we got something like $800,000
There was money from Louis.
from Blue
Blue
Acres and from Monmouth County Conservation Foundation. So in other words, it cost the town relatively little
Yeah,
when you're all done. And it's one of those decisions that you just say, okay. And it was not an easy birth because there was an error in the deed. The
Right.
original deed had a transfer
Couldn't
error in
get clear title.
1903 or something. Yeah, it was called
Wow.
a Scrivener's error.
Mhm.
I said, everybody was balking. I'm just buck it up, man, because it's 100 years. Just buck it up, get through here and it's long forgotten.
Do we have any
Now we're
other-
worried about
do
the.
we have any other direct questions, comments?
Are there grants for the stormwater management? Sorry, that was my question.
Uh,
We were getting up, I'm sorry.
In general, yes, there are usually grants.
There's grants.
You could buy, yeah.
Robin O'Neill, 935 River Road. I do want to say that I love the collaboration of the ideas of the living shoreline and the green garden. And I think it is a nice idea 10 years ago, and I think it's a priority.
What I've been saying for 10 years, thank you.
Briefly, it kind of bothered me, and I don't know if all of you in this room exactly know the activity daily there. But I do get this impression that the design that I'm looking at, and I know that this is going to change because it is a few years older, but I do feel like there is a driveway that encourages the launching of kayaks and paddle boards. And it seems like the rain garden is going to come in front of that as you bring to Normandy, as you come into Normandy.
Yeah.
So there's,
So I'm
there's,
nervous about what the public is going to say.
there was an existing driveway there for the Robards property originally.
And people.
There's a common driveway to the, if we call it south side of the park. And then, well, the north would be the river.
Let's-
Yeah, right, it's not something I follow.
Come on, Cap, come on, Cap.
I'm clicked over.
Yeah. So-
I see it on ground lead, people are, they're used
Right.
to it, and
So-
all of a sudden, they're not going to understand the concept of the rain garden, and it's going to get, put to the side. And it is a fabulous idea, with all that rainwater coming down.
100%. So,
But I'm nervous
again,
about the public.
so again, this is, a conceptual plan,
Yeah,
which obviously now I think, which we're gonna come to a vote and a consensus for Tracy to go to the Borough Council, Mayor Council, that we would like it revised, right? And not have any parking spaces. Have one pervious area for offloading and loading and offloading if somebody comes in from a further distance with a, paddleboard or kayak or what have you. No jet skis or any of that, obviously. And that's it. So there would be, my idea, there would be zero, in fact, to Nick's point, to try to take out more impervious coverage, i.e. sidewalk, to make this swale to direct the water into the
really the
river.
rain garden.
To do I would say we're doing the opposite.
Can I ask a clarifying question, if I may? Robin, was your concern that members of the public would want to preserve a feature for launching kayaks, which would compromise the rain garden? Oh,
I think there's a way to actually design it though, where there's still a walk-up pathway.
Yeah.
I think
So it looks like to me on this, that there's a pathway
Yeah, I
that it
know.
almost,
I think that's very aesthetic.
Right.
It's very adorable.
yeah, there's a walkway that goes, if you look at the rain garden, I'm gonna say, it looks, to me, it looks like a figure eight.
So right here,
Yeah.
so this is our, this side.
It goes
onto that. Yeah.
Yeah, I don't.
Yeah, then you could bring little like.
Right.
Yeah.
Yes, the Galworks is to the west, and then the north, this is south. So you'll still have, but the idea is that it's not impervious, it's all pervious coverage, so it could be. I hate using quarry dust because that ends up all over the place, there's nothing to retain it. Gravel, something like that.
Okay, I understand.
My point was that we don't want to add any pervious stuff,
Okay, you can just do it low ground.
or just do a, yeah, oh no. The tuna fish stop biting.
Thank you.
So can we take a vote then?
Do you want to ask
members,
if there's any questions about?
any other questions? Is there's other, do we have Zoom guests? Hello, Zoom guests.
We have two public participants participating online. Do you have any questions directly related to the Electoral Society Living Shoreline Project? If so, please raise your hand and I will bring you over.
Okay,
Nope.
thank you. Thank you, everybody. So do we have a consensus that we want to move forward with the conceptual plan without any addition of pervious coverage? And the rain garden, which includes the rain garden, the living shoreline, and then Nick is gonna work on how to direct the water the most feasibly and ecologically friendly way into the rain garden. Any opposed? That is, Rip, Tracy. It's you now. Yeah, it's, you know, I'm not good at waiting for things to be done, and there was many emails, dozens from me to Teresa, you know, to try to push this forward, and there was outside forces that didn't allow this, so thank you again.
So go to the council, they approve what part of it, like, okay, we can
Well-
go ahead and get.
Yeah, so
It's still way far away.
I'm just having Tracy's problem, not mine. It's all-
No, because we need to know the process.
So we go to them, you say,
Yeah.
okay, we can now get these new surveys.
Surveys.
Okay.
Yeah, get to the line. You got one of the things.
So it reloads Zach and his team to say, okay, Fairhaven's back again. No, we're resurrecting this project.
Okay.
And then it's in the hands of Stevens, Rutgers,
Okay.
and Zach's team at the Little
And then
Society.
it goes back to
And then
them.
it goes back to the town to say, okay, this is feasible that we can do, or whatever the budget, so on and so forth. And then Nick's team with, Rich to finish the engineering, the drawings from the engineering department.
And that's where the scale and scope question comes back, because can you do pieces of this as you go along, or can you, you know?
But also, I mean.
It may be cheaper to do it.
Funding,
Right.
so when is that, so
Where you
we
can find-
would look funding or something.
Yeah.
Well, we, along with.
May I just speak to the
and Steve.
procedure for a moment?
Yeah.
You know, everybody can correct me if they have a different thought, but I think tonight was important for questions, unpacking it, putting it back together, understanding it comprehensively, and being able to take a unified position, which is, hey, this is great. And being able to send that position to the governing body.
Right.
What happens after that is, it's now my job to attend to it, meaning to continue to escort this project as you have. So, you know, would like to see it move forward, but also acknowledging that we have Nick and in-house staff, but there's a ton of projects that they're working on. There's also a piece of this that does have to be done by an outside engineer. I only know that because I spent some time with Nick understanding this
Mhm.
project. So we would depend a lot for decision-making on Nick's recommendations as to how to put this together, who to bring on to help us with probably at least one major part. The surveys and stuff seem less complicated. And then, you know, it seems to me also that there's a kind of go switch now for seeking funding.
Yeah.
Because there is money out there. So that'll be up to the governing body of direct staff to prioritize that. So, and then I'll continue to come back and give you sort of progress as to what is occurring.
But this stops me from sending my emails.
Yeah, but you guys are done, like, I mean, you can
We've done
continue
our part.
to ask and
My dozens of
follow
emails.
up, but.
And then what we will do is we will put together, I'll talk to my boss, we'll put together essentially a proposal of stuff that we can offer and costs associated with it and send it off to you guys.
Thank you.
And Stevens and.
Yeah, we'll put together,
You'll bring in that.
yeah, we can reach out to them and talk to them,
That's
as
great.
part of that.
Thank you.
So, yeah.
Thank you.
Great.
All right, but yes, it won't be done anytime soon.
This was good stuff.
Yeah.
No.
But it's the step in the right direction that we're all on board and,
And this can also be incorporated into the ERI.
Right.
No one just look at Jesse when I say ERI.
Yeah.
So here,
I have been reading it. Everyone.
it's a very important document. and
Yeah.
very helpful, But
So, Zach, you're dismissed if you'd like to
Okay.
leave. It's up to you. More than happy to have you continue.
I would stay, but my dog is,
Yeah, crossing, its legs.
he's in the car, yeah.
Just,
Yeah,
yeah.
he's got the windows down, he's fine, he's hanging out.
Thank you so much for.
Yes,
No,
thank you.
for having me.
It was great to see you. Yeah, thank you. Tell Tim I said. Yeah, tell Tim and the crew I said hello.
I will, yeah.
Oh, I still owe somebody a boat ride too over to the islands.
Oh,
I'm
yes,
supposed to do
that's
that.
right,
Yeah,
yes. Okay.
so let me know. Now I'm back.
Okay.
We're going to the islands.
Alright.
Gunner's Island in the South River. It's not very exciting.
Nice.
Yeah, ask Jackie. about the trips to the island. Staten Island, Long Island. We can go to Amazon. We can take it, what's it? All right, so current business, so the EC budget develop next year's project goals. Well, that's pretty open-ended.
Yeah, that is the idea. And I just want to encourage you to keep this on your agenda for the next few meetings. The idea that you put your heads together and think, you might want to look at the master plan, you might want to look at the ERI, you might want to do take a look at how much open space we have. I give you a little summary. I could prepare a report for you. And you guys need information.
I was gonna say, bring to you, yeah.
For where you live day.
Well, all right, so our current budget is 2,500.
Okay,
Right, and that was just something that's always been,
That's.
That we never
Hold on,
used.
But that's
Yeah.
just it's kind of not the budget, because the environmental commission doesn't do most of the things we advocate.
that's what I was getting.
Yeah, engineering or someone else, so if you think
Right.
about all the open space things we've done,
So
it doesn't come
the,
to this
the
budget.
question comes out is, let's say we ask for 10,000. And let's say that, okay, fine, you guys came up with this and it's normal and we pass it. Are those expenses then gonna be kicked back to us, say we need an engineering for something? Well, we gave you guys $10,000 budget, you use.
separate, I would
Is the question.
reprioritize, take the money out of the conversation for a second, because I know that can be a distraction. When I say think about your goals, remember, you're largely a policy body.
Correct.
And you're responsible for attending to the opens, really all. Your purview is the entire borough. I would argue that there's to be a special focus on things like stormwater management, things like open space, wetlands, ponds and creeks and such. But what would you like to focus on? Maybe you think that in 2023, the ERI should be brought up to date and you should identify top areas of concern that you want to seek, you would like the borough to seek funding for. You should identify those areas of concern. It could be for stormwater management, maybe it's for Fourth Creek and conservation concerns, maybe, I could go on and on.
Yeah, sure.
But it isn't so much about the $10,000, right?
No, no.
Because ultimately, if you've identified your concerns, you'll know that there might be some professional services that you'll need.
Right.
The ERI is typically done by an outside, you just haven't had a professional on it. Right, but Jessie has another
Have
job.
you seen her bills?
I
So,
just, food for thought.
right.
You know.
So then, is it fair to say that we would have an appropriations of X amount based on, the green team, the ERI, the, Stormex, if we want to do another Stormex, because this one should be successful.
Not
that-
getting the ideas together
No.
first to see
Right.
what we'd like to do. and
But then it would be a-
apply To that,
Right,
Yeah.
But following
That's what I'm
Tracy's
saying.
point, I've been a long-term advocate for this too, because in a sense, like parks don't have any clear, advocate or kind of supervisor on a policy basis.
but,
We function in that kind of role,
Mhm.
liaisoning to the council and saying, this is probably what we should do with regards to this open space area in town. And therefore, I think it's really, really appropriate to say, hey, shouldn't the environmental commission get resources that are appropriate to help their mission?
and then, but,
And
and
you're
then,
asking to give that mission.
but then the second part of this is, okay, we put together. You have wants and needs, right? And let's say we came up with, it doesn't matter, like you said, the dollar amount doesn't matter. Would we be able to say, okay, the Stormex was very successful, do we have to then have you go and back to the council and say, we want to put on another Stormex system and we need some money, rather than saying, okay, we already have the appropriations of X amount and it covers another Stormex. So that it kind of isolates us from another step to get bogged down in trying to achieve our mission and goal.
I think you're talking about projects and how projects get executed. I'm talking about planning and policy.
No. I think we're talking in one of the same. I'm talking about, and you
No,
can
but from a
probably speak more
budgetary
to it.
Yeah.
Yes, from a budgeting
So budget
perspective.
perspective, Tracy's right. in that-
Correct. No, I don't think there's a red.
Well, no.
Maybe I'm not being clear.
Say you want to do Starbucks, that
Right.
probably would go into engineering to do it.
Yeah,
We would be the ones saying, this is what we need to get done.
yes.
And then Tracy would, and the council would help put together a line item. Now, here would be something like, right, are we gonna have some sort of study that would say, what else do we do next?
No,
If
but
we have to do
I'm,
physical infrastructure, it probably goes to the council's general budget on open space.
yeah, yes, but that's my point, is that if we say, okay. Stormex was very successful at Fairhaven Road, we're gonna do another one on the end of Hants. We have the money in our budget, so Tracy, we're all in agreement, let's do it. You go to the council, say, yes, we're ready to do the next project. And the council or Teresa or whomever can't say, well, there's nobody in the budget. Because we already have money
Right,
earmarked
but
for ongoing projects is what I'm getting at.
Nice question, because.
How does that work?
Is the Stormex gonna be a study of what to do next, or is it gonna be physically putting infrastructure?
We're physically putting one in the end of Fairhaven Road.
Right, so that's changing the physical infrastructure of the town. I would
It's
recommend,
as a pilot project.
well,
Right.
you could recommend it for the annual budget to go into public works investment for the year, and that way it gets in the budget.
That's what I'm saying, is that,
It could
so
be
that we
two.
don't have to jump another hurdle and say, and then have the borough say, well, we don't have money for that, come see us next, which is but what's been happening with the.
Yeah,
pond.
just to give you an example, I also am the executive shade tree, and what this month isn't a good example because the agenda is short given the guest speaker, but typically your agenda is list all the projects you're working on, anti-idling, the Carter Pond. So they're looking at their action plan in terms of that, so they're kind of looking. And that's the way they're budgeting, but it's basically a list of their projects
Right.
and they're prioritizing them, and that's how they're.
But if we get that factored into the,
Let me try to say this another way. You guys you're not the boots on the ground execution, get it done by. An environmental commission, and I could provide the statute and the local ordinance, so it's very short, it's extremely easy to understand. Government formed this commission for government's own purposes. So council seeks your understanding on certain things. Your purview is the entire borough as it relates to the environment, which these are very, very broad. There's definitely sort of an unmet or there's not enough attention on our open space. And I'm not speaking about Fairhaven Fields and rec areas. Although from time to time is an environmental issue associated with them, whether it's flooding or invasives, you could, but we have 100 and gosh, what we have 89 acres. 89 acres. We're only about 1,000 acres. and roughly 10% is either wetlands, barren, or open, natural areas. They get no attention, because they're not showing up at meetings and asking for attention. So it's really this body's job.
We're the stewards of.
And government formed you so that you can advise government as to what attention those areas need. So I'm asking you to come up as a policy body and consider what sort of information you may need from perhaps professionals, or I'm not sure, but to make recommendations ongoingly to the governing body in comprehensive way.
Tracy,
All I was trying to figure out, and maybe there's no way to answer it, is that if we said, okay, if we had earmarked X amount of dollars, which fit in to a quarter of what we wanted to do, okay, and figure over the next 4 years, let's say 4 years, because we're gonna do a quarter, we would have that money earmarked for the environmental commission and the projects that we would suggest to the town to do, where it would be 25 grand, whatever, it doesn't matter the number,
Correct.
but so that we didn't have to say, okay, we want to do this and it costs that, well, okay, you still have $10,000 left, right? Is there a way to do that in a municipal budget?
So, I mean, Jonathan may be able to speak this, and I'll also remind you that the green team is sort of an aspect of what the environment.
It would be part of it.
Which is like.
Be 100% part of
A
it.
lot of programmatic and educational stuff, but
Right.
what I'm trying to say to you is if, as the environmental commission, you make a case for and a request for something that you feel responds to a documented need. I mean, like you could say, StormX, this is proven, it works, we know, and so the environmental commission is asking the governing body to budget for another one.
I think,
That's what's up to
I think
them.
the way you're suggesting it is this body should have put together a budget for whatever study,
That's what I'm saying.
policy and research.
To have
needs
it
to be done.
Execution, though.
And
No,
then,
just
hold
that.
on, and then alongside of
Exactly,
it
Mike.
should be a capital budget that you would
Correct.
submit back to the town council saying, based upon our recent outcomes, we're recommending these types of projects.
The
and
capital piece can come at any time.
That would come over
As
to the
you-
council to say,
as you
now we
roll
need to
out.
do this.
and we already know that there's capital allocated towards whatever. It
You're
doesn't
always-
have to be.
you're- But the point is, that over
In other words,
here.
how much money is it? If we're all on the same page, if the
Yeah.
environment is the most important thing in Fairhaven's world,
Pretty important.
Okay.
then there should be a capital fund or something set aside for that,
Okay,
right?
and this is
To a
where,
point,
but
but other than a big project, McCarter's Pond.
But
Right,
are we
that has-
supposed to come up with this plan first to
no,
give
I
that to them?
think the way you do it is.
You back into
You
it.
put the plan together
Right.
and you find the item, the next item on the list
Right.
that we need to study. We don't,
Yeah.
what is it? I don't know, air quality issues related to whatever, I don't know. And then the next thing we do is we say, okay, given what we found, we recommend to Tracy to bring to the council a recommendation that we do
Mhm.
the next year's capital program include
Right.
$150,000 for whatever it is.
So how do we figure out our priorities? Do we
That's-
sit all together and get as much of the project
The
that we've
next,
done in the
the
past?
next, so between now and the next meeting,
I would,
jot them down,
yeah, I would
and then we'll
encourage you to
discuss it
read
at the next meeting.
PRI
Yeah.
and read the
Mhm.
master plan. It's not that hard to read.
But
I don't know if you have time for that, but I could also. I've done a lot of that. I've digested all of our, planning documents and more, like I've read a lot. I don't know that I could pull up every fact you needed, but I would be glad to provide information to the extent I'm able. If there's something that would be helpful to you.
And then just speaking on behalf of the green team, where do we
Yes.
come in with what
your budget.
our budget is that going, that aligns with some of.
Well, so the green
Right.
team's budget is connected directly to more programmatic stuff.
Right, we are the boots on the ground, there's a
You
lot
are
more
the
of
boots
that,
on the
yeah.
ground. And so you're gonna have a better handle on what your to-dos are for 2023, because it's not policy.
Right, but does that go into this
It would be-
larger, grander EC budget?
It would,
Yeah.
but it would be earmarked for.
Earmarked,
Right.
okay, right, so that itself will be your,
Yeah,
okay.
like the stickers and stuff, we could spend $2,500 on that, that's
Or
all,
like.
for 1,800, right?
Education.
Because there was a budget at 1,800, so we have 2,500, we're, you know,
Well, that's, I mean, there goes the budget.
There goes the budget.
They don't have very slushy budgets. They
Right.
like budgets with a lot more.
Right, so then
designation.
we
So
sit here and say,
I would recommend the green team put together a list. Let's assume the budget for the environment commission is $25,000, 10,000, that's green team.
Right.
I would look to see whatever 6 or 8 items you're
I'll
gonna
put it
have in that
25,000.
and put a plug number in.
I'm thinking 25,000.
And personally, I would like it if you had very clear goals and
Right.
objectives.
Yes.
Of course.
Because I think when council adopts a budget, they should understand that they're also supporting the goals and objectives that
Of the
are
EC.
that are attached to the budget,
Sure.
because that also then directs staff to support the implementation or the advancement of those goals. So, you know, staff is going a million different directions too. And really good planning internally here helps them understand that what they have to attend to. So that would be my request.
Okay. Well,
So,
we're gonna,
yeah, this will definitely take a few meetings, but let's plan to, if, I think, before the end of the year.
Yes.
Should we all bring our top 5 items?
Yep.
That are open.
everybody
items?
have top 5
How about
items
that for next time.
with approximate, cost.
Well, and
Also,
also.
now that you're gonna know the cost.
Yeah.
No,
I think,
but-
I think it's having.
But somebody has to come up with a number, eventually we have to come up with some sort of number.
Now, let's say, for example, one of the goals is to update your MRI, right? You don't know what that's gonna cost. But we do know that that's important.
Right,
So
Right.
if that's on there as a matter of, that's like good housekeeping, that document's foundational. So that's something that we could ask Teresa to look into, how much that's, or somebody at the office can find out. for us.
But I
Teresa
thought you were
asked
doing.
you. Oh, by the way, I want to acknowledge Christy, who reached out to the American Liberal Society, followed up with Zach, and I know there were efforts to try to, include the outworks if that was something, and
No.
she coordinated everything with Nick to make sure he was able to participate, and thank you. No problem.
Thank you.
Thanks, Christy.
We had the contacts. for them.
Do you have like 2 other things?
We just have another item.
Dedication by rider, Ralph, what have you got?
I was going to interject before that a standard principle taught in any MBA program on accounting and the like would have the budget for the people who supervise a particular program. They should have the budget and be responsible for it, not take budget from somebody else's area. And I want to be sure that we're consistent with that. That would say that the green team needs budget for what they do physically. The environmental council needs a marginal amount for what they do, plus anything that where they supervise an outside engineering firm coming in. And if the work is being done actually by Nick and the DPW, the money should be in that budget. That's sort of a principle of accounting that we ought to stick with. Are we doing it?
Yeah, I hear where you're coming
Yes.
from, yes. That's why if this body makes a recommendation for, say, for example, Stormax, that money can be found through Clean Communities or somewhere, but directly related to DPW's.
Exactly.
And that's a separate budget.
Correct.
Gotcha.
Right.
What is a rider from, the dedication by rider, what is that? Ralph?
Well, I
Budget?
think Christie could probably, I don't know, just Ralph. Yeah, maybe like.
Ralph, do you want me to explain that in person?
You want me to explain which? What I said?
No,
The next item, the dedication by rider, I can explain to the
Oh,
commission we
okay.
discussed.
Yeah, go ahead, please.
Okay, as we've kind of piecemeal identified over the course of the year, fundraising cannot be done by the borough, by the green team, by Shade Tree.
And I talked with the finance department and legal counsel. It was determined that they can all accept a donation though. In order to do this, they're going to make a resolution on council's behalf, that's going to say, you know, they're entitled to accept a donation. The question for you guys is, that we need on the record is, does the Environmental Commission and Green Team want to accept donations separately or lump as one entity? This is only for accepting donations, not operationally, not managerially, nothing. It's just, if someone wanted to donate, would they donate to the Environmental Commission and that would be for both? Or do you want to have two different entities that would be able to accept donations?
First question is, if somebody, would we be cutting our nose off to spite our face if we said, nope, it just goes to the EC? Or is there a way, you know, because somebody wanted to donate directly to the Green Team?
I'd have two entities.
Or hold on, two entities, I have three entities.
Well, I would have at least two entities, because I would say if somebody wants to directly donate to the Green Team.
Right.
To the Green Team, somebody wants to support generally environmental issues.
Yeah,
in
because,
town,
well,
support
either,
the DC.
what I was gonna get at is that if somebody wanted to give money to the Green Team, there's and it had to go to the EC, then it would be up to the EC to say, okay, this is for the Green Team, you have $500.
Precisely.
And it would be earmarked for the Green Team, or who does the accounting if it's done two separate entities? Is the
It's all
question.
handled, it's, so let's back up. This is this mechanism, the rider, is in response to a year of us trying to figure out, oh, how come we can't, they want to, you know, largely it's the Green Team, because they're on the ground, they're interfacing with a lot of
Right.
residents in the community. This is the response to our continued request, like, we'd really like to be able to figure out a way to do this. So-
Is there a way to do it separately? Just do it separately.
Yeah.
Just do it separately.
I
Just
discourage
that
commingling-
And what is the advantage or disadvantage of the two?
I discourage commingling funds. I like people that have separate funds so that.
Yeah, I do
Because
too,
then,
but
because then you
is
don't
it-
get into recriminations
but-
after the fact. I gave money here, I thought it was
Right,
gonna
well,
go here.
yeah.
having said that, is there an advantage or disadvantage to do it one way or the other?
Yes, if you want corruption, commingle funds.
I have
And
nothing.
that's the author. of a
I would
conceptual
tell you right now,
government.
as owning my own financial advisory firm, I have nothing to do with any fund.
Oh, it's commingle.
So if we take money, say, for the Green Team,
Mhm.
is that our money to spend however we want? What happens once? we-
No, the dirty
No.
problem is it's gonna be the
No.
borough's money,
It's the
right?
borough's money, earmarked for you.
I think
We
it's
have to go to
probably,
the borough to get, like, all
Well,
the steps we
Well,
got.
let's face it, you
Which is
know,
what I was trying to get at before. If we said we want a budget of $25,000, we can't just go and say, okay, let's go buy a storm light. It still has to go through the channels, which was what I was trying to say. So you're gonna get $500, or the Green Team
It's
gets
not like,
500,
oh, I
you still have to go to the
Listen,
channel.
No,
We still go to council, or do we have to go to just?
this, so,
Borough.
the borough. This, oh, you mean after the funds are raised?
Right, like, if we raise the fund and we're like, okay, now we're gonna do.
We'll spend my money.
Print something up
Just
tonight,
like
just like.
No, you would still have to go.
Or would I
through
have to
all
get-
the-
You still have to go through the approval
But
process.
it's just, you know,
It's just the deal process, not like.
let me just add something in here. I think it makes most sense not to create a new entity for budget purposes, but to have all contributions for Green Team or the Environmental Council Commission go into the same body, into a joint body which covers both the Green Team and the FHEC. Now, with that happening, it would be agreed that anything that is donated specifically for the Green Team would go only to those projects working on the Green Team. Would also give the Environmental Commission the opportunity to augment those donations when the Green Team has an idea that can't quite be fulfilled with the dollars from the donation. So I think it would provide the best support for the Green Team, and it would be simplest from a bookkeeping standpoint.
I respectfully disagree, and I think that it will come to a vote to to that point, right? Is that what we're doing is voting on?
Well, can I ask for, because to his point, I think he's saying, so if we don't spend on the green team, then it can be spent on the environmental commission.
But that could be anyway, but if somebody gives you money and it's earmarked just for green team.
Like getting a grant, if you don't spend it, you can't give it to somebody else to spend.
Yeah.
Right,
So-
it's yours to do
Yeah.
what, it doesn't expire, the money's.
So that's what I was gonna ask. It's always there.
Right, it's not like a grant where you have.
Donate it back to the
Right.
Shade Tree Commission or something,
We're
right?
right to help out, could be, used-
No.
right, if you're
Yeah.
doing to shade tree or rec or.
That's up,
That's
up
up to you though.
I don't know, I don't know.
Here is, I have other like logistic questions. This is kind of like the community appeal, but that's separate, right?
That's,
Yeah.
Right.
So then it's, if we ask for donations, I mean. How does that, do they monetarily give us money or a check? And then
Goes
we have
to-
to bring to the borough, or do we just say you have to mail it into the borough, pay attention?
Well, that's very granular. I mean, you could
That's
receive a
logistics,
check.
right.
Or that you can pay cash, but you're probably gonna have to give them a receipt, because of check, you can copy, there might have, if somebody wants to give you a bunch of cash for the green team.
No, but I mean, we were saying like even having the movie night, right? And we
Yeah.
were trying to like ask for donations
Yes.
instead of selling things like that. I mean,
Yes, this would enable that. Yeah,
That
this
would
would
enable-
enable
That would be
it.
the conduit to do it.
right, like we're just, because.
so this would then set up an account with green team that would be the place for all the donations would help.
Okay.
Because nobody's gonna donate to the environmental commission, because we're boring, we don't do anything.
No, but at the community.
But,
appeal
well, we're not
level,
boots on-
though,
we're
how
not
come we
quote, unquote,
aren't on,
boots on-
like shade trees on the community appeal, Rex on the community appeal.
Right, because they're boots on the ground, your boots on the
Right.
ground, so I think it should be definitely separate, that's my vote. We can bring it to a vote.
And,
I just don't know how we go about asking for these donations.
well, that's okay, because you've spent this year finding out people want to donate to the green team.
Right.
That's the easy part. Tonight, we just want to put the mechanism.
Don't worry about that, that's a
And
problem,
then we just had that.
this is gonna be the conduit to do it, right, so let's, all in favor of a split green team environmental commission?
Yes.
Aye. Opposed? Ralph,
Brian and Ralph.
I'll abstain.
okay,
I'm
Yeah,
in
we're-
favor.
You're in favor of what?
yes,
Of two separate
two
accounts.
separate, right. So, it's passed that it's two separate entities. It should be.
That should be on the council agenda the 19th of this month.
Okay, so that, all this is a recommendation to the council to have.
No, when you vote on something like this.
It's
this-
set,
Yeah,
okay, go.
I mean, why would the governing body would implement a rider without your knowledge?
Right,
You know, There
okay.
are reasons.
So what we did tonight was enacted a rider to enable Green Team and Environmental Commission to
Except,
accept donations or fundraise under each individual entity.
Individual entity.
The
Solely for donation.
And the borough is holding the purse.
I think the commission needs to recognize that if the green team is separately budgeted, as you're talking about, then you're talking about the supervision for the green team coming directly from the council.
No, excuse me, Ralph, we're not talking about a budget, we're talking about if somebody wants to donate money.
We
They
are
can
talking,
now donate directly to the Green Team, not to the Environmental Commission to
Right.
benefit the Green Team.
so
It's not-
presumably, Brian, the green team has a dotted line directly to the council and the money flows down on that
Well,
line.
that's what I was saying. It goes to,
And
we have to go
that's,
to the
that's
borough.
the supervision of the green team is with the council. I don't know if the council's prepared for that. And I think it would be better to have the joint.
whose creature is the green team?
The Green Team is a.
Who created the Green Team?
creature.
No, I'm sorry, that's not why I work.
So hold on one second.
No, I mean, in other words,
It's
it's
a
an entity. It
Yeah,
exists.
it's a Green Team. And I wanted to talk to you about this. On Cape May, out of the blue,
And I think-
Cape May, I met your liaison to Sustainable Jersey. So
I'm asking you, who stopped the practice? That's who I want to know.
What up? Susan told me that. So, the Green Team is an entity set up by Sustainable Jersey. And each town, if they so choose, forms a Green Team.
But
Our-
okay, hold on, you just said something, forms a green team.
Correct.
There was some action at the council level?
Yes.
Yes.
Yeah,
Okay,
there-
did the council designate, hold on, did the council designate to this body supervision of the green team?
Yes.
Probably did.
So let me finish. That's why I'm finishing.
Go ahead.
So the green team is a subset or under the environmental commission.
Right.
Correct. But for purposes, because people may want to donate directly to the green team, Ralph, this has nothing to do with budgets. This is a donation. If Susie wants to give $1,000 to the green team,
It goes into
because she
the budget.
agrees with the mission, now they have that money directly in their coffers that's governed by the council. So they still have to go to council and say, we're governed by the borough. So they still have to go,
It's,
right,
it belongs
so
to the green team.
it belongs-
I propose to delay this issue. We need to have some serious discussion.
they still have to do a PO to the borough to get access to that money, to
It's like a
spend,
trust.
Hold on.
like a trust fund.
I would suggest that if they're gonna have their own money and resources,
They
that
do.
they are going to have to put forward a budget or put forward a request for spending, and that would have to go to be approved on the
That's what we.
bills list.
That's what we just said.
That's-
That's under the EC.
Hold on, but Tracy would take it to the council and recommend that payment of that bill.
Well, I mean,
sure.
that's.
As
No,
liaison.
no, no. If the green team ends up with $1,000 from various
From
donations,
Cindy to say, do what you please.
right, then they don't have to come to the EC or the council or anybody. They just have to have a
It's just like
PO.
our bank account.
Hold on, they just need a purchase order from an entity. It can't be Joe down the street selling, daisies. It has to be from Pilot's Nursery or whatever to purchase plants, and they have their own money.
Look at my head.
Let's talk about the.
Hold on, this is all semantics, and I don't wanna go,
Let me look in, let's just give that as an example. Printing, we ran it,
but
we didn't go through every single step. There were thousands of steps that made that happen. We didn't approve any of them by you guys. We ended up not using any of the money, but had we used the money in advance, we would have known, so we know now what it would have cost.
I don't want to.
So when
stop
we
you.
get the printed stuff done, we don't have to go through you guys, we just go
Correct.
to the
You
borough.
just do it.
Right.
You just do it.
This printer.
and then it doesn't go against our budget. Is
I
what
don't
I'm
want to
saying.
stop you, I want to help you. That's what I'm trying to
But-
say.
It would hinder us to have to get every single step approved.
Correct.
I really indicate that if you have.
And that's why I said it should be separate.
The resources are inside the borough. You're gonna have to have some mechanism by which it's approved as an appropriate expenditure.
You know, I think I get that.
Yes, but the money came from the public.
I understand, and even if someone gives a donation, you still have to be careful. because
Yes, it still has to go through a PO process.
And I'm really indicating that
But-
this body could be the
All right.
approving body at the budget. You say,
That's what
okay,
we're slow down. We say that just slow down. line
No.
stuff.
That's why we just made it.
But you don't wanna wait until everyone. has to get it.
Right. Hold on. We just made it separate, so it doesn't matter. It's a moot point. So you go directly to mommy and get the money. Once somebody gives it to mommy.
That's a big.
That's what it is. That's exactly what's happening.
All the ladies.
That's exactly what's happening. So they don't have to go through another process to get the money that was donated to the green.
Brian, there's a principle here that we're ignoring. The principle here is that if the green team wants to spend money, and the money is, let's say, a sizable amount, $5,000-$10,000, and they've gotten a grant for a gift for $5,000 or $10,000.
Mhm.
I believe under the rules of accounting for the community, for the Fairhaven Borough, there has to be a signature on staff of a person who is supervising and approving the use of that budget.
Correct. That still has to, it doesn't, so.
That's the
So-
administrative.
That is not on the green
To
team,
go to Teresa.
and it speaks to where the supervision for the green team comes from. The two are intimately tied.
So it took the environmental commission out of the supervisory role where the green team gets the money, because I would say that there's benefactors that would like to donate money. And they don't want it to see it go to a general fund of the environmental commission. They want it to go to the entity that's.
It would not go to them. It would go to a joint budget and be allocated.
No,
to
that's the
green
point.
team And be allocated to the green team.
The point that it wouldn't be.
Wouldn't
They
that
want
just be part of the budget? Like, that's
Right.
more of like the budget.
With all due respect, I believe that this issue ought to be postponed, discussed with the borough staff.
It already was, and it came to us for a vote, sir.
I haven't heard that from anybody in the borough staff yet.
Christie just read it.
Yeah, that's my understanding as well.
We just need to work out all the details.
All we were asked for as a vote, if the membership, if the commission members wanted to have a single entity with the green team as part of it, or two separate entities for the benefit of people, benefactors donating money to each entity. So if somebody donated $5,000 to the environmental commission, it would be the environmental commission, we would go, want plants from Pinelands Nursery, they're approved as a vendor, we get a PO, we send it to Teresa, it's signed off by Teresa and Betty Ann, or
Nancy.
excuse me, and it takes another step out of the green team wouldn't have to come to the environmental commission and do that whole process. And I would dare say, just real quick, that there are people in town that would rather give money knowing that it's going directly to the green team.
I agree with everything you just said, Brian, and I would add that, remember, the green team is working with the environmental commission, any activities or programs that are being implemented through the green team
Besides
will
all
be
benefits
known
the
to
environment.
the environmental commission.
But not every single
Not at like.
line
you're not gonna
item
know
that
whether
we're
or not
spending
there's
on
three of
needs to
them
be
posters.
And now the old grub,
It just has to
and
be.
the old grub on the corner is gonna say this again, when you have money being spent that's public, because once it's donated to the borough, it's the green team's money, I agree
Yes.
with that. But you just need to have some level of supervision
And
that
that's
this is an
Teresa and
appropriate
Nancy.
expenditure.
Right.
Now, who is making the decision?
Teresa and Nancy,
Well, and
Coming
that's your
from the
fiduciary
green team.
responsibilities in the borough.
correct.
And
Which
my
is always
point is that I want to make the funds get to the green team and to make sure they can spend them expediently. It's just a question of, right, who is it saying this is
Well,
inappropriate?
you're seeing a lot of the green team here.
I'm
So
not-
if you trust, but it's basically
I-
about trust, I guess, you know.
I know, and
but,
the
you know,
problem is you're talking to a professor of finance, and I
I
don't
get it.
trust anybody, and I wrote a book on government corruption, so I'm always assuming, I work for the
But you know,
whistleblower. You have to just.
we're coming up with our priorities.
Again, to make a point here, Brian.
So that's been, so that's been,
Brian,
right, so let's move forward, please. Council update. Because in the interest of time.
Would you like the McCarter Pond update?
Oh, yeah.
So, we did receive two proposals for, to prepare the bid specifications to, put the project, the hydro rigging project out to bid. One from CME, one from Avakian. They were quite similar in scope. Naturally, the Avakian proposal was just slightly less
Mhm.
than the CME.
Can I say it?
Yeah, it's right here. You want to send this?
No.
It's about $30,000, $30,500. And, this would get us to, through the bidding process. And then they would supervise the award, the contract. That's the Avakian one, which it came out on top for a few reasons, and that was in a conversation with, that was in the engineering DPW committee, which myself, Mike McHugh, Josh, Rich and Teresa, so we reviewed the proposals there. And in most ways, they were very similar. Avakian, as I mentioned, was a couple $1,000s less, and apparently the Avakian team is known
Yes.
widely to be the crew that does this work.
Yeah.
And,
They-
yeah.
I wrote
and
the report.
so-
They were the original ones we had.
Yeah.
Spoken to.
Yeah.
They're the right choice.
Started.
So, that was the proposal, that was recommended we go with. And, so it's gonna be put before the council.
Good.
And next steps are underway.
Thank you.
Alright, yeah. Check that in.
Stormex Might as well lead in with that too.
Well, I was on some emails.
I thought we had approved.
Well, we do, and I
Right.
was a little late to that because I probably get 300 emails a day or whatever, it
Isn't-
is. It feels like 300, and, so it's funded.
Right,
The StormX pilot project is funded, it's coming out of, Clean Communities.
clean community.
Yeah, it might have two funding sources, so forgive me if I'm forgetting.
Is Nick still with us?
No,
Okay, good.
so that, there's nothing holding that up at this point.
So we just have to order it.
I believe the order is underway, actually.
Yeah.
Oh.
The next still here?
Oh, Nick is here.
Yes, I'm still here.
I didn't say anything bad. I said good, meaning that you could go to sleep.
Yeah, no, for the purchase order was processed and obviously we put the order in. So we're just waiting for it to be manufactured and shipped and delivered. Then we'll work on the installation and we can work with the Green Team and Environmental Commission regarding education and awareness associated with it.
Very good.
Thank you.
And I would like to request monitoring. I don't know what we'll learn. Maybe we won't learn that much, but.
I'm gonna monitor daily.
Always monitor.
We will. I'll be down there after every meeting and what's in there anyway. Yeah, it's.
Yeah, our stormwater permit requirement or townwide MS4 permit requires us to monitor all the outfalls. So after every storm event or various different, isolated storms or occasions, DPW employees or myself, we go down to all the outfalls and take a look at it, make sure there's nothing wacky going on or, monitor the deterioration, scouring or what have you. So that's part of our normal process and we'll continue to do that with the Fairhaven Road site.
Thank you.
Can I ask a quick follow-up question? Any number of items may end up in StormX netting. Is somebody going to catalog them, even if it's just categories? I just think that could be pretty, it could be kind of.
I was gonna, what I was gonna do. if I could just-
Yeah, we could
Just take
definitely
pictures.
we could definitely take pictures and obviously we have to dispose of it properly depending on, what's coming out of the netting.
They have to
But
be sorted.
yeah, it have to be sorted with recyclables or trash or whatever it is. It's gonna be a dynamic situation and we'll kind of monitor and address accordingly.
Great. I'm thinking it could make great images. I'm looking at members of the Green Team who boost around education and stuff like that. Yeah, right. It'd be great for 12-year-olds to see that. That thing. My cousin Jimmy dropped.
Well, if the Clean Ocean Action has that program, this is gonna be showing it real live action, which was one of the reasons I proposed.
Yeah, again, we'll take videos. We can even take videos during storm
Right,
events
Wayne.
or see what happens and
I'll
kind
check. I can-
of keep everybody in the loop.
I'll set up one of my cameras on the next one that I have to install.
I think you should
And
do
watch it. Before.
before
you,
storm.
That was the intent. That's why I proposed it. What is it?
There you
The
go.
whole point works.
Thanks. And we got an answer. All right, cool. Glad things are getting done. New business? I don't have anybody else? New business? We got a lot of old business we need to finish before we bring on new business. Public comment, anybody, addition to Bonnie, come on up.
I was just, based on what Tracy said about the 10% of our town that is natural area. And it really isn't, and this is not, we just don't have that. I think the time for DPW to take care of all these invasive vines, which are a huge problem. And I would strongly urge everybody on this committee to take a walk with the natural area group with this Rutgers representative in October. I think it's October 22nd. They walk in the natural area, you find out all the invasive vines and all the problems. I mean, it really is what I would ask is that one of the things you recommend is a maintenance budget, is to really put a focus on maintaining our natural resources, and that whether you work with Shade Tree Commission too, I mean, the environmental commissions get together and it's a problem. You walk down, if you go see the pathway into Fairhaven Hills from 3rd Street that Mark Olson with the Eagle Scouts, it's restoring, planting the trees, it's really impressive thing. And
So-
Debbie's been helping them kind of off the record, she's been doing it,
Well,
it's great.
does the, I mean, the shade, it wouldn't be, but the natural area had, their task is 100% to take care of that area. They have a budget.
The
Do
one
they have a
thing I
budget?
would caution you about is sort of departmentalizing.
No, I'm just asking the question. Do they have a budget?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah,
So they, because
but you know, when you think about stormwater management.
100%.
it doesn't Stop at the natural.
absolutely,
Okay, so just
no,
framing.
I'm one that would all through the fields trying to find poop leaks. So, and we found them in the middle of the fields. So I'm
50.2 acres of Fairhaven is wetlands.
correct.
33.9 acres are forest or wooded area. 5.5 acres are barren land, is barren land, so it's about 89 acres. Another 125 acres are schools, churches, roads. And another 106 acres is kind of borough property. All of which needs maintenance, attention, and also more, probably equally important is plans for how to ensure that they remain environmental treasures and not fall into the kind of position we're in now with a lot of our lovely features. We have, they need attention. So, you know, as I will just say, because this is your commission, I'm here as a liaison. I mean, I think that governing body would benefit from some sort of plan. And to understand, to begin to wrap our heads around what steps can we take over a long period of time, because it's not gonna happen overnight. What steps can we take over time to help to bring these treasures up to the
Which
level
is-
that they should be at?
Right, which was my point. The natural area, that's their domain.
But
That's,
we could,
they know it better than us.
yeah.
But they should come to us and say, look,
No,
we need this or we need that.
This is like. if
But
we
it's in
want-
the ERI, isn't it?
Yeah, no, but there's something like, if you wanna get a consultant to go through town and develop a maintenance
That's
plan.
what I was getting at. Yes.
Yeah.
It's not us. It's somebody that would be under us to bring in
yes,
to do it.
yeah.
Right.
This body can say to the governing body, we need a plan. And if the governing.
Oh,
body
100%,
decides
absolutely.
That that's the case.
It's never been the case.
So the challenge always is that there are some areas that have very powerful and very local advocates.
And that's what-
And I say many times that capital doesn't talk, doesn't cry, it doesn't scream, it just carefully and slowly deteriorates into non-functionality.
Right.
So things like we have a new tennis court, because they were advocates that were very aggressive to get that done.
Mhm.
But cutting back invasive species is not a particularly lovely or exciting thing that people do, but unfortunately, it's just slowly progresses, and now we're here. And I think the role we can take is to help the governing body understand that it's not just the natural area, it's a general overall.
Correct, but what I was getting at, which is exactly that, is the natural area should come to us and say, hey, look, we need this, let's come up with a plan. The shade tree committee, we should all work together
That's another, yeah.
and say, okay, this is what we need to do. And do we have to bring in an outside expert to put together a whole plan, and then we start?
No, the challenge is we have certain things in good state of repair, and everything we have should be in a good state of repair, or
100%.
generally well preserved.
Right.
The problem is people are always reshuffling. What is the priority of the day?
Depends on who
What
yells
you're gonna
loud.
spend money on.
Right.
And the invasives are going to be an expensive project and a long-term project. And sometimes some of the solutions, like I believe back, we had a discussion about having prisoners come in from Monmouth County Jail to work in the natural area. There was pushback that wasn't a good idea. I personally was in favor.
I think it's a great idea.
Valuable. But, you know, you have to decide what is your priority and how you're gonna, what are we gonna work on next, right?
So that'll be,
The last thing I want to say on that, if I may. When you do think about what kind of guidance or support you can provide to the governing body in terms of recommendations or findings. You're not limited, there aren't departments
I didn't mean that. I meant there is a department. There's the natural area department. There's the shade tree department. There's all these different entities that are like me for the river. There's the river department, okay? And we all have our expertise. We can't be the master of everything.
No. they're
So my
not
point was,
departments, right,
if I might just, is to bring all those entities together, which is what you're saying.
What I'm gonna
And-
say is there's overlapping jurisdiction and it's 10, whatever, we've been at meetings.
We're all saying the same thing.
I think so, except I don't want people to get the impression that the purview of the environmental commission stops at the edge of the.
Nobody said that at all. I said that we should be the entity that they all come to and bring us all together and put together an overall plan. That's exactly what I said.
What was asking really was, it does seem a very, and loved and very focused on river, it's such an important part of our community. I was just asking you to maybe experience the natural area. Because I know that there are people, you know, in the council, like Heights, that have never walked through it, didn't even know. And we're like, oh, there are lines all over there, you know, they weren't aware of it. It's just kind of an eye-opening experience. Natural area committee, they're all these wonderful volunteers, and I don't think they're gonna come to you and ask you. And I think I'm asking you to.
I'm in the natural area more than most realize and have been for a long, long time. I get it. But hold on, let me just finish. Hold on, let me finish. Is that why wouldn't it make sense for us to reach out to the natural area and say, what do you need? To the Shade Tree Commission, to Navasink River Municipalities Commission, which is what we're doing, and bring it all together. To Jesse's point, bring in an expert and say, here's what needs to be done to bring them all back to 100%. That's all I was saying, which I think we're all saying the same
I think
thing.
we are.
Yeah,
So your policy body reports to the council. That's
correct,
the last.
100%,
Right,
right?
we should all have this on one of our top fives.
Yes.
Right?
100%,
There
absolutely.
you go. Put it on the top five.
But that's what I was trying to say, but everybody was
Top
thinking-
five.
Let's see it, we put it on our top
the
five.
whole environment, I don't care if it's the water, I mean, that's what I was saying.
Yeah.
So, adjourn. Sorry.
We have a public attendee via Zoom. Do you have any questions? Please raise your hand.
I'm guessing separate.
Nope.
Can I give one shout out?
Yes.
This to Kelly and to Stephanie.
Yeah.
They killed it with the Sustainable New Jersey application and it was not easy and it was like literally last minute. I think I entered it in at 11:55. I want to see it at 12. So kudos to them. We have a lot of stuff pending still. I just wanted to say thank you. They did such a good job.
Who was the woman who landed on the beach out of blue?
I don't know. I have no
So
idea.
she came up
in
and
a high.
she's, yeah, she's right.
high-
She is the, I think, coordinator for our area, and she knew everything right off the bat. And gave you guys kudos for doing what you're doing, and she knew Fairhaven right away, this little 1 square mile town.
Brian, this wasn't on the agenda, but perhaps we could get a report from the green team, specifically, especially about sustainable Jersey. That'd be all right.
You were supposed to be on the agenda.
I wasn't, that's okay. The thing is, we did do round 2 of our Sustainable Jersey application,
Okay.
end of August. We submitted with, so 350 points is for silver. We submitted over that, but I don't know if we will be approved because there was quite a bit, not quite a bit, but there are a couple of actions that I know that we are missing some deliverables in order to get it. We are kind of been in the works, but it was tough working with other entities of the borough to get that information.
Is there a second chance?
There is a third and final.
Oh, sorry,
chance.
right.
Yeah, there's like a third and final in November. And once we get the feedback from them, that is where silver is within reach. And I know that it's not just my goal and the goal of the green team, but I know Ralph, I know EC, I know there's other people that would love to see this happening, especially it's in Little Silver by Bang, Rumson, Middletown, have achieved this designation. And the thing is, our borough is doing it. We're doing many of these actions. And it would be great to be recognized for that. But perhaps we are just missing some of that, the deliverables in the form that they're asking for.
Mhm.
What are the roadblocks? I mean, if we miss our window, two questions. If we miss this November window and we don't get silver, which of course.
We get
bronze.
We've already achieved
But they have to
bronze.
start it all over again?
We've already achieved bronze and that is valid for the next 3 years.
So it would be 3 years before you could actually try.
Before you
Silver
resend
and
back.
So you have to start all over again. in 3
You don't
years.
have to start all over again. You have that point.
You have the accrual.
You have the,
Okay.
accrual. Some of them expire and you have to update with.
Oh, you know, some of the points, you don't have all of them. Some of them will expire.
Right, some of them, right, you just need,
I think we
Me
should
too.
do everything we can to get the last items in.
we're there, we're at the
No,
finish line,
it's
we're
So you're
almost
just
there.
waiting,
It's
Some of it was actual like paperwork and stuff, like real
administrative.
stuff we did need from like borough entities, and I think it was a little bit.
Or some things that just aren't in, maybe
Good.
plans that, aren't in the best order or haven't
Yeah,
been updated.
I've never been happy since the day one this thing showed up, because we had stuff on our books, like on recycling, but wasn't the verbiage they wanted.
Right.
And they ticked me off from day one, because I'm
Right.
like, but we've been doing it longer than anybody, but our verbiage didn't match theirs, and I'm like, that is stupid.
It's
We did it before you even came up with the
You're still
idea.
getting to the same result.
No, I mean, that's ironic, and I don't even want to go, there, but like, they don't give enough points for like bike to school.
She came up.
They don't give enough
and
points.
We have
We should
all
get a
that.
massive point for bike to school. We don't.
But
get
you do,
it.
We're on that.
What do you need in order to try? Now I'm directing my question to you, knowing that it could take all of us, right? It could take the whole community in this final push. But
Well,
what,
you know, and I think this goes back to also to when you said whose creature is a green team, right?
Right. See?
And it's not just a creature of the Environmental Commission. I think that this is where people have this misconception.
Mhm.
It should entail people from the borough, people from the administrative staff, from the DPW, from the PD, from the firehouse. From the rec, from Shade Tree, because it is not, there's part that falls under the umbrella of the EC, but there's also zoning and planning and
Mhm. It's everybody.
and it's hard for the green team, because we're all here and our focus is the environment. It's hard for us to reach out to those other entities, the borough, and to get that information.
Who's our liaison to zoning? and planning?
Betsy,
No, from here.
we don't have, the green team isn't set up like that, but
No, the EC,
Brian Olson is on the planning board. Oh, I'm sorry.
that's the EC, right, because it was me, I can't do planning.
But you know, like PD.
Don't want to,
you
because
know,
I don't want to.
DPW.
This is why it's important to think about that structure,
Right.
because it helps you.
Again,
Other towns have those participants.
all
And they,
set up.
and they recommend that it's a much broader
Yes.
group of people that join the green team. Right now, on the green team, we have one representative, or that's in question, from the Shade Tree, and that's.
But it was set up at some point in time. I'm just saying you could go revisit it and say, look, based on the long experience and how it's grown and developed, that you have to recommend change to the structure of who participates.
So then that recommendation would be a representative from, and then you
Right.
could list all the rest.
I still think it should be under environmental
Yeah,
commission as the general
Do
reporting.
you have a list of
But then it would
vacancies,
be-
like departments that you need people to come?
Or official liaison from each department.
But, all right, so.
Except the EC, like, we're good on that.
I think we go back and we look at where we have these gaps and maybe reach out.
That's
to
what
the
I'm,
spot,
that's what I'm
reach
getting
out
at.
to- Yes.
Have a designated sole point of contact
Right,
for each of the
that's what I'm
organizations
getting
that
at.
you need. so that
I mean,
they
you don't have to say everyone, yes, I get it, but
But like,
I don't know who everyone is, so.
PD, you know, even the fire, like, you know, those types of.
No, but if those entities know and you ask for a contact
If you-
point, that would be reporting to you as needed.
So I would suggest put it
Right,
together and
yeah.
start with us,
Liaison.
right? And then I could say, okay, reach out to Wade Davis, the fire company, or whatever, or, you know,
I'm sure if you ask the chief and said
Send it-
designated
send it back.
office.
But is there,
Right.
is there a clerk at the police department that can help me?
They
get
would
a
be
different
like-
No, I think you get.
well, you could go to the, because, well, no, you have the code enforcement officer would be a layup to be a liaison to the green team.
You would ask the
Goes
chief
back
to appoint a liaison to the green team
Right.
and say, any issues you have, he would or she would facilitate what you
Okay,
need.
and but this wouldn't come from me, obviously. I think this would have to come from like, do we agree as like a council, like.
Well, I agree with you. I don't want to leave Kelly with that assignment, but maybe you could just.
Yeah, give us a
Sure.
list.
Just give us a list.
And let the environmental
We can
commission.
fill in the
Because
blank.
there are some
No.
priority actions and some other actions on the Sustainable Jersey that it'd be great to have too, but it's like fleet inventory. Well, who's gonna be the one that has access to all these? And knows
Well,
my, you know. that can
Meanwhile,
help.
we have
Do we have
70%.
some inventory?
We do.
Yeah.
It's just, you know what, it's not complete.
It's not complete. We
It
need
has
mileage and
minimum
other stuff. But
It should have. fire.
You got it, you get that. That would just be different, making it full day.
Yeah, that would be.
But
Yeah,
that's,
fine.
that's also valuable information that.
Oh, yeah.
the borough-
If you had a liaison at the police department and said, give us a mileage of all the vehicles and go to DPW.
Right. It-
So let's not wait till the next meeting. Is that
Okay,
okay?
yes, that was-
Is that okay if Kelly circulates
Yes.
this list?
Sure, through email to me.
No, it's gotta go to
Okay,
Christie.
send it here.
Has to go to Christie.
And then,
Can't have a quorum.
and don't reply all.
No. Well, CDCC.
But no, actually, well, you're the official liaison to the key city. You could also serve to that, to the green team.
No, I meant.
Isn't that Betsy?
of,
No, she is.
Creating, directing staff to provide.
Well, I think you could report, once we get the list that they think is official, right? You bring it to council and say, yes, based upon the request of the green team,
And they have.
you're recommending that liaisons be established with each of these other parties and ask who's gonna be the
Nick,
liaison.
Rich could help much more
Nick
than
would be
like.
perfect.
try to delve into-
Nick is on top of all this.
I know, yeah.
Right.
That would, I mean, that would just be, that would make our job a lot. easier.
Yes.
You're the best, Nick.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah.
Thanks
It's
for that.
been
Yeah,
a
and-
very long road.
yes.
I just want to acknowledge the steadfast
Yes, you
the commitment that you made to.
And well, everyone and
Bond
and the
Rob
the
and
whole team.
Stephanie's
Yeah.
here, but you know, Michael, and
Right.
it's been a lot of work.
And
I
Jen
know
was
you
on
get
one of the papers
right
as
to
well.
the 100-yard line and.
Right.
One thing.
We got 380 points in there.
Yes, but I know.
I know, we're gonna go.
The
over.
three that I said was like.
They give you details on where exactly.
Yes.
They give you very specific.
Yeah, they
Great.
cheat.
If we introduce and adopt the shade tree, the tree preservation ordinance before, what's the date?
November 4th, I believe. I
My
have to get that.
birthday. So if we do that, what's the point?
Early November. We have the tree preservation ordinance. I believe it's a tree hazard inventory that we are missing. That's the only one that we're missing on it. And like I said, the liaison to shade tree was fantastic, and Christy, because Christy, I have to give the credit to Christy. She hooked us up with so much.
She is doing. it.
Because she's the secretary for shade tree as well, and so she was able to find all this
But we
information.
don't have that information that has.
Yes.
You know, we actually.
It's something
have
we
to,
should start
For our
tracking.
insurance purposes, we actually have to have it.
We've got it. I don't want to take up more time. I just want to say
Yeah.
thank you. It's coming again in November, but I'm hoping that once we get the feedback, we can pinpoint people and be like, please just give us these A, B, and C, and then we're good to go.
And I just want to make a plea on behalf of this effort that, you know, the influential people that are here on the commission use their relationships to facilitate the requests that are still, that Kelly and the crew is still working on.
And we can put a list together of the actual requests we need from them. too.
Yeah,
So it's all-
Totally, exactly,
Yeah.
which we've done, you know, something
Yeah.
about it, we only need this
Yes.
three
Let's
things.
get it all in writing and everyone can see and we can check them
But
all.
it gets lost in the 300 emails.
Yes.
But you've been, and Faith has been great too. Okay, so.
It's hard.
Thank you.
I want to say something, because I see this playing out like right in front of us. Exactly what we were talking about before, we were suggesting to go back and by next meeting, that the environmental commission come with the idea. What we need as a green team is for the environmental commission to say, there's this great program out there. It's called Sustainable New Jersey. We have ability to get a lot of grant money for our borough. And then they need to tell the green team, boots on the ground, and we'll get it done. That's what we need in the environmental commission.
Quite a meeting. We technically already.
Take a month off.
Oh, you-
Double the time.
Motion to adjourn.
Oh, yeah. Increase it.
I remember.
If you're still there, I can.
I have some.
What I like about it.
Are you guys rolling ahead with all this stuff?
Yeah.